It's championship season and expansion fever. That's what we have for you this week on the Indy Ball Report podcast. All right, we are back again. Episode number 260, not 263. We're not quite there yet. I honestly think I'm dyslexic because it's 236. So we reversed some numbers there, but you know, right numbers, wrong order.
Big Dog just does not know how numbers work. I love that.
I was never good at math here, and look, there's fundamental issues here, but at least they're better than the fundamentals we've seen on the field the last 2 days in independent ball, because it's been just, I don't even know what the hell to call it. Just some very poor fundamentals this postseason.
Fundies have been lacking.
Keith Hernandez is just in shambles.
I mean, it's business as usual.
Fair enough. He did lose the truck in the divorce. So with that said, you're gonna know what that's like soon enough if we keep doing long podcasts. But you know,
bro. I'm like listening for the door. It's terrifying.
I laugh because I'm not in that situation. But the best part is the audio broke right there, so it sounds like a dragon's yell. So that's
good.
It makes it even better. It's more fitting for this show. In any case, I suppose we should get into the news so that way we don't have one of those like 2-hour-long shows, even though selfishly, if it goes 2 hours, they do better. So like kind of sort of want that, but I also don't want to be up till 3 a.m. editing either. So, all right, let's get into the news here. We're going to get through 2 of the pretty basic bits, and then we'll get into an expansion update. As you probably could tell from the cold open, there was some movement on that front. I'd say a decent amount of it, to be quite honest. So that'll be fun to talk about before we get into some deep and heavy playoff discussions. And the good news is Quebec was courteous enough to get blown out by Evansville tonight, or at least they're in the process of doing that. So we won't have to worry about them winning a championship tonight as we record. So that's aces on that front there. But first, we have to talk about Hagerstown, who unveiled their branding on Wednesday. And I'm not going to lie to you, I forgot all about Hagerstown's name, which is probably not what you want in a new brand. But the logo looks really good. Again, we're going to do this thing where we describe an image on a visual medium. So that's going to be great audio here. But long and short, it's essentially a guy dressed as a pilot riding atop a C-119, essentially Dr. Strangelove bomb scene style, if you know what that is. That's basically the vibe there. Primary colors here are red, sky blue, navy blue, white, and gray. Overall, I think it's pretty solid, and I really like the hats there that we saw on the one banner ad that was there. The bottom left and top right were 2 just absolutely great hats there. May have to invest in that.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I feel like I didn't like it as much as most people when I first saw it, but it has grown on me for sure. Like I was kind of like, these people are a little bit overly hyped. I think maybe the standards have dropped as we've seen a few mediocre rebrands. But I will say, as I'm looking at it more, I'm kind of into it. Like,
yeah.
Part of it is I think I'm salty that I really wanted it to be the Haymakers. I think it sounds great, but it's okay. I can come to terms with it and I can move on. I'm responsible and, you know, a reasonable adult.
Well, that's debatable.
Yeah. Whatever. Shut up. I think it's good. I like that. I was ready for them because I know the flying boxcar thing is like related to the planes, and I was ready for them though to like go some weird way with it where it wasn't a plane thing, because like I feel like so often these teams like lose the plot so damn bad.
You lose the forest and the trees type of thing.
Yeah, and you're like, how did we get here? Like, I'm honestly feel a little bit that way about like Gastonia. I think the brand is cool, but when they're like, oh, this is like related to, you know, the land of milk and honey thing and the free slave or whatever the background was and this and that, and now that's why we're honey badgers, and we're like, really? Like that's like, I mean, bro, I've had like less degrees of separation between me and Kevin Bacon to get there. Like, what are we talking about? So I'm glad that like they won, like really did it direct and they really spelled it out. And I feel like there's shades of like Staten Island with this one, where
that's interesting is, if I'm right, it's the same design team between those.
It is. You're right.
Yeah, Sky
it
Designs.
is. Yep. As I said, I looked it up. You're right.
Based out of Montclair, New Jersey, right in my neck of the woods.
There you go. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty good work, man. They're good at getting lots of detail into one logo.
Honestly, that's the thing. I really like their work, especially when you go on their website here. If you look, a lot of the really nice old Atlantic League All-Star Game logos, like the Southern Maryland one that unfortunately didn't get to be used, the Lancaster one, those all look really nice. That's all their work. Like, their work's really, really good. I enjoy what they do. But if I could just jump in with an unrelated tangent, because you mentioned Gastonia. I was at work the other day, and I was wearing my Gastonia hat, the one that they sent me for free. So that's why I kind of feel bad for ragging on them, but pay your employees.
No.
So the kid was like, what minor league team is that? Because I guess it's pretty obvious a minor league logo, which, hey, if a 11-year-old can find that out, you did a good job. Simple is better. And I was like, oh, it's Gastonia. It's, the Honey Hunters. And they're like, oh, why is it a badger?
Right.
I was I didn't have a good answer. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I've heard people call it a skunk before. And like, if you know the hat logo, it's just the head with like the honey as a flame type of thing. And I was like, I really don't, like, I should know the answer to this. But I was like, I could explain this in detail, but this 11-year-old kid is not going to get it. But yeah, it was just kind of a funny thing. Yeah, it's kind of funny. In northern New Jersey, I got asked about why there was a badger on my hat. And just thought it was kind of an interesting
I'm impressed he was able to ID it as a badger, frankly. It's pretty good work. I'm sort of all over the place here on my end, because you did just remind me that I heard a rumor. I have not been able to substantiate. It's so hard to confirm some of these things now with Gastonia, because people are getting weird. But I did hear that when the team was in New York, that the bus company pieced out because they hadn't been paid, and the league had to pay them. So maybe I'll hopefully be able to confirm that. But that would line up with a lot of what's been going on down there. Hearing that there are some owners sniffing around there, could be like somebody from one of the other North Carolina teams down there. We'll see.
That could be interesting. Yeah, so I do agree though that as far as the Sky Designs goes, to get us back on track, their designs are pretty good. They add a lot of, they keep it simple but yet detailed at the same time, as counterintuitive as that may sound. I think it's just a very nice, clean logo. It's better than the Brandiose logos, which I can understand why people may get them confused a bit, but that's just the modern style of, logo creation. It's kind of in the program. It's just the way it's done nowadays. So I'm fine with it having similarities, but there is a notable difference, and it just feels better. It feels more, I don't want to say it's more of a classic design, because it's not exactly that, but it does feel more true to minor league baseball, if that makes sense. And overall, what I do like is a lot of the secondary marks feel like, yeah, that's a baseball mark. And I understand some people want to get creative. They want to do things different. They want to stand out. I get that. But at a certain point, it's like, let's also identify this baseball team as a baseball team, right? Like, we don't need to be getting confused. It's like a fashion brand. This does not need to happen.
Bro, this is bad. When I first saw Gastone's logo, I was like, oh, that looks like an NBA, G League logo.
Yep. Any case, so yeah, overall, though, I do like the Hagerstown design and all that goes with it there. So good for them. Unless you have any other thoughts on Hagerstown, we can move on to Ottawa.
No, let's go for it.
All right, so let's go to Ottawa now. Champions are continuing the renovation plans. It's a 10-year long plan. It's including new patio deck, suite upgrades, craft beer station. They are also looking for a naming rights partner for the ballpark itself, formerly Grant Thornton, it's like RGCT Park, I think it was like Grant Raymond Chabot Thornton, something along those lines. Currently, it's an unnamed stadium, so they want to get money for putting a name on the side of it. I'm okay with it. I'm cool with it. Personally, I like when they have non-corporate names, but again, that's a lot of money that could really be used to help the ballpark and help the team, so I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a cool little ballpark going. I'm hoping we see kind of a renaissance in Canadian baseball here through the Frontier League. The energy's so good at these games, and honestly, I've been impressed by what I've seen out in Winnipeg too. Yeah, I hope that what's going on in Quebec and some of those, and not to say Ottawa's that far behind them. Honestly, Ottawa's got a good vibe too, but I'm hoping that this launches it, because I don't know.
Quebec's so good, man.
it's good for the whole game having a good having a good like foothold in Canada. That is a good thing. Like, I don't know, in a weird way, even argue like as a country, it's good that we have like our game like doing well in Canada, and like it's sort of a middle ground because the U.S. and Canada always feel like we're kind of on different sides of things in a weird way.
Yeah, I guess it's either way though. It's good to grow the game in Canada too when you have that kind of atmosphere there, and it's hard to go to like a Quebec game and like you saw the atmosphere on both of those walk-off shots. What was it, Giddy and Profar? Like, on a Tuesday and a Wednesday night, too, to have that kind of atmosphere. Like, how can you go to a game like that and not be, like, so, like, juiced up and excited for baseball? Like,
and on, like, a cold night where it's also been, like, you were down several runs in the 8th inning.
Yeah. Like, that's just, it's so impressive. And they keep doing it consistently, too. So, it's not just, like, a one-off thing, but, like, the Quebec fans understand the importance of the game. They understand the actual, like, there are stakes to this game in particular. We're here to support the team and all that comes with it. So, like, obviously, like, they're not always in the top for attendance number-wise. I think that's more or less just seating capacity more than anything else. But even still, it's like, I know whoever's there is, like, they're into the team. They are, like, 100% fans that are there. It's not really just casual walk-ups. No, they're legit fans of the team, and it's just such an electric atmosphere. And I so want to experience a game there.
Yeah, my wife and I are lining up a trip for next year because we know we got to get up there. But yeah, I mean, I think about it, like there's people who are like, yeah, we're going to Canada so we can see this baseball game. It's like, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I could go during hockey season, but it's just not the same passion you see for baseball.
Fair enough. Oh my god,
but,
I'm in it for purely the baseball, not any ice sports while I'm up here in Canada. Like,
just baseball and perhaps some legendary French cuisine. Let's continue on, and we're on to expansion talk now, which, quite frankly, is where we're going to get bogged down because there's a lot to do here. And this is how we started getting bogged down in the pre-shows, by talking expansion. So we'll kick it off with the American Association first. And then I believe we have some Atlantic League and Frontier League news that are kind of intertwined. So the American Association pretty much stands on its own in this regard. We'll start off with there. As I said, it appears as though they have interest in expansion. It seems to be fairly confirmed, seeing as Josh Schaub was doing a presentation in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And in addition to Murfreesboro, there's apparently 14 other cities that were on a list that they had some interest in. We don't have that list. I will do anything I can to get my hands on that list, though. And furthermore, it appears that group that is interested in going to Tennessee is being led by Jason Rose. He is going to be the lead owner of the team. He has a background in public relations, theater productions, and a polo championship as well. And I have to say here, they list some of these theater productions in the one article here. And I gotta be real, it sounds like the kind of movies that Troy McClure would do, from The Simpsons. Like,
hi, I'm Troy McClure.
Exactly. It's like, couldn't you see, hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember from such films as Americano, Tiananmen, The Ghost of John McCain, and Bar Mitzvah in Birmingham.
Smoke yourself to death and get confident, stupid.
Like, these sound like Simpsons type of movies. Obviously, they're not Broadway, but they are, I guess, theater productions, stage productions, any event. Rose has a background in them, and they got interesting names, that's all. Moreover, there's a downtown site in Murfreesboro that they're targeting. However, there's some residential concern that it might impact the historic site of Cannonsburg, which is apparently an early settlement of Murfreesboro. That's the general consensus here. Hopefully the NIMBYs get defeated and we have a new stadium built, because baseball is more fun than some old buildings.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a feel for what that looks like. I missed something here, and maybe you're better versed on this than me then.
Okay.
So Jason Rose, this guy, is he like already set to be the owner of this team if this team happens?
He would be part of the ownership group, yeah. I believe he was trying to create a larger group, which would be something like Murfreesville or Murfreesboro Baseball Inc., something along those lines. I saw in the one article, I forget which one it is. All of them are linked in the show notes, by the way, that lists the actual organization he's trying to get. He'd be one of 2 or 3 primary owners, yes. As he put it in the one article, apparently he was talking with some of the other association owners, put him in contact with Schaub, and from there, apparently Schaub presented him with a list of 15 cities, and Murfreesboro was the one he was the most interested in.
Interesting. I'm just piecing that together with like how I've seen other sort of organizations come about. It's so funny that it can come about different ways and come that way and go to like there's like Gastonia who's like we're going to get a stadium and then who's going to fill it type of thing. Like that's kind of fascinating to me. I'm trying to get a feel for like that guy's background than that, but that's interesting, man. I don't know. Honestly, my number one thing is he doesn't have a real estate background. Is that weird?
I get skittish around that.
Not that I trust polo people, but
fair enough. Supposedly, the ballpark would either be put in front of or behind Cannonsboro. It wouldn't have a lot of drive-up parking, so it is a downtown ballpark. I should mention that there's a large historic village in the middle of a downtown area, which is a very odd thing for me, but whatever. And essentially, I think the game plan here would be to try and revitalize the area and then use foot traffic to fill the ballpark. Ballpark is supposed to have about 4,500 seats in it, so it's not terribly large. It's right in line with a lot of the newer construction in the association. For what that is worth. Again, there is other parking that is on streets and already existing lots. So if you want to drive, it is still very well possible. It's just not the primary focus in mind.
Interesting.
Also, rumor has Clarksville's also on the radar for whatever that's worth. City north of Nashville, Murfreesboro south of Nashville. So there could be 2 American Association teams in Tennessee, which puts it really outside the footprint. And you'd need to do something to either make them their own division so that way they could, play amongst themselves or throw something else there. Otherwise, you're going to have a real dilly of a pickle travel-wise, which we already know is a major concern in the league.
Yeah, for basically every league at this point. Yeah.
I guess my couple thoughts. I'm just trying to get a feel for like Murfreesboro as a place. I don't know. It's
small.
It's definitely. Yeah, but not that small, right? I mean, it listed,
about 150,000. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a little bit not terrible. I should also mention here the timeline on this thing is a 2026 opening day. However, stadiums and things like this, I would say 2 to 4 years is probably about right. So maybe 26, 27 would be it.
Yeah, it really depends on the approvals and how long that takes. Because that can. Just a couple months could mean you're going to be not ready in time for a May start date, and then all of a sudden you're pushing a full year. So
exactly,
gotta watch that.
And Christ knows building isn't easy anymore. You have to have 15,000 different approvals and an environmental report of 3,000 pages long because some random worm species may be impacted. I'm not saying it's a problem. It's just like, hey, do we really need a 3,000 page environmental summary to say things could be impacted? Like it can be 30 pages. And for what it's worth, too, I think I should also mention here, because I have mentioned this Canonsburg, which is a major, hold up for opposition here. I mean, we had people show up to this meeting where Schaub is literally going through the slideshow presentation, holding up signs say, don't move Canonsboro. There's no intention at all to move this. Like, both Schaub has said it, Rose said it. They have openly said, we don't have an intention of moving it. We want to put the ballpark in front of it or behind it. That's all we want to do. So there's that. Although it is kind of funny. In the one article, it says that there was one historic area that got bulldozed to build the highway back in the 50s. So it's like, okay, well, some historic areas mean more than others, it would appear.
Yeah.
Historic bottoms is what it says. That's the area.
Yeah, I see that. That's so...
It's an interesting thing.
Weird. I mean, I see a good bit of shopping centers for an area that you feel like protecting historically, but I'll get off that.
It feels like... If you go to the one link here and you open up the video in it, you'll see what I mean about the historic area. It doesn't seem very historic to me, but I don't live in the area, so what do I know?
I mean, I will also turn people's attention to the hair on Jason Rose.
Oh yeah, it's a hair look, which it's got some John C. Reilly look going on there.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Big John C. Reilly vibes.
I'm trying to put it all together here and like figure out exactly. Well, I mean, here's the thing that worries me to this point is I see a lot of articles about it, but like no real comments on anything or like excitement for it. You know, I haven't really checked like Facebook or anything like that, so maybe I'm missing it. But that is one where I'm like,
That's the thing. What I will say is it does seem like it has some backing from city officials, but the problem is with backing from city officials is city officials are easy to change out. So
yeah. And they don't pay the bills. Everybody wants to be the one that brings a pro baseball team in town, like a Gastonia.
Yeah, and it also, I forget where I saw it here. Oh, which one did it have? I believe the city would own the ballpark and the team would rent it from them, if I remember right. So,
let's think here.
Although I will say they are going in with very realistic expectations because developers and city planners, this is one of the lines here, which is developers and city planners say it will take 2 to 3 years to develop and construct a new ballpark in Murfreesboro, no matter where a minor league stadium is located and built. Organizers hope to attract 2,500 to 3,500 fans a night and to watch 55 home games a season. That's a very realistic ask, though. Like, if you're going in with that, I feel confident in that because you're not going in thinking, okay, we're going to have 4,000 a night. We're going to be selling every night. It's going to be all well and good. It's like, no, probably about 50 to, 60% capacity is a realistic ask, I would say.
There's a lot of spots where they could drop a ballpark. That's all I'm saying. Like right within, like, call it a mile of downtown.
But Ryan, think of the old buildings. Won't someone think of the old buildings?
Yeah, I know. When I'm I'm going the other way too. Sorry. Good luck with your Canonsburg, which when I Googled it, it was articles going back to like 2016 talking about how it needs to be revitalized. So good luck. I'm looking at like big open.
But Ryan, they just want to preserve their history. It's important to them.
Yeah. Well, I hear a lot of that from a lot of markets that fail. I hear that from a lot of towns that never improve.
See, what gets me though is that
history. Historically, is your town economically successful? No? Oh, fascinating.
Here's the thing though. Even quotes in here the visitation numbers in the one article. It's the one from WSMV. It has taking visitation from Canonsburg to 8 to 10,000 a year to 14,000 to 250,000 struck me as a pretty special opportunity, Rose said. They're drawing 10,000 people at most a year to this. I'd at least assume a year. I can't imagine that's monthly numbers. Like, who is going to see this thing? Like, I've seen pictures of what they're trying to preserve. It's in the news clippings. I don't understand this. It doesn't look like something that needs to be preserved. I'm really pissing off Tennessee, aren't I?
And if you're not like east of the Mississippi, this might not be as similar, but like I find this, every town has a historic part of town that has been around for a long time. And I'll say, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, if every town has it, and it all goes back to the same sort of time period, and it all has its special little piece of history. So like, again, it's old, it's got a special little thing of history, it hasn't been touched much. But like, if every town has that, is it special? Now, I understand wanting to preserve it for your own sake, but at a certain point, you also have to be like, are we preserving something in our town that needs to be preserved when we can go to another town and see it there? Like,
and that's, how much is changing region per region?
This is a general thing. This is, as Americans, we cling too much onto the history side of things, which is funny because I think our normal criticism is that we toss it too quick. But it's the obsession with like our old buildings. And I'm like,
Bro,
it's almost like
half as old as buildings in Europe that are in the middle of towns with skyscrapers going up next to them. Calm it down.
That's what I was about to say. It almost feels like to me, I don't want to say inferiority complex because that's not right. But it almost feels like you're trying to catch up to like these buildings in Asia and Europe that have existed since like 1200. And it's like, well, look, you're just not going to have that. And like, I'm looking at this here and the one thing says this thing came about in the 1830s. That's not that old. This thing isn't even 200 years old. Like, again, maybe it's because I've been always in New Jersey. So there's towns by me that have existed since before the country was around. But like, at least give me like 1600s here to have a case for preservation here. What exactly about this needs to be preserved? I don't get it. Like,
hey, Murfreesboro. Hey, Murphy, and then we gotta move on.
Yeah.
Hey, Murfreesboro. Listen, friends. I remember Murfreesboro. I remember it for like one or two things. None of it was your historic district. I remember it for was something else that they wanted to build in your town, and everyone got mad. And so mad that you like vandalized it a bunch and protested, and it became a big thing. Oh, that's right. It was a mosque. So calm down. We know you don't like things that scare you and are new. Hey, Murfreesboro, calm down. It's going to be fine. Like, it'll be a good thing. And, you know, people can be mad all they want about new things, but in reality, it comes down to you don't want to let go of the thing you have because you identify yourself with it. In reality, it's just things. And you can say, well, it's not just things. It's a place. Things happen here. That is the definition of things. They experience things with you. And then you let them go. It's okay. Look, maybe this is a bigger thing for the town. Maybe it's a bigger economic boost that we're not seeing. Maybe we don't fully understand it. I'm open to that. But your town also hasn't really bought themselves a good,
you're in a bad
you haven't bought
boat
yourselves
right
benefit of the doubt when you also protest against the mosques that hard. Like, sorry, the only thing you're known for in the past 15 years is protesting something being built. So there's that. It seems like that's what you're known for, not your old town.
Well, a neat little thing too is, you know what the number one thing on TripAdvisor is? Which, by the way, Cannonsburg Village is number 3, by the way. It is Stones River National Battlefield. Yeah, and the fourth thing is the Stones River National Cemetery. Honestly, here, I'm looking more and more here, and I feel like you're doing more of this Stones River thing. Like 3 of the 4 things are Stone Rivers, like top 5 wise. Also, neat little thing, the number 11 thing to do in Murfreesboro, the Wat Lao Buddhist Temple.
Oh, well, they're cool with the Buddhists. That's good.
Yeah, see, well, for now they are at least. With that said, that's really all we have on Murfreesboro. I was going to do a deeper dive into the Stone Rivers, but that's just opening another tangent entirely. So they are an option. Clarksville's apparently also an option. That's on the table. Also in Tennessee, I suppose the larger conversation to have at some point in time is what exactly is the goal and the map here on this expansion. It seems like a lot of leagues, meaning everyone except for like the Pioneer and the Frontier, want that southern market. So it seems like there's a push there, and who knows, with the way the Atlantic League is ran, maybe eventually some of those southern markets will start talking over to the the American Association, saying, "Hey, bud, you need an extra team or two?"
Yeah, you're not wrong. Definitely some potential intermingling. I think maybe when we get a little progress on the Murfreesboro thing, we'll start to get, maybe we'll crack open that discussion, or just when things slow down in the offseason, talking about like who else could be in the footprint if they were to go that Tennessee direction for the American Association, because there's a big old gap between there and Cleveland.
You don't know how much I'm looking forward to doing the expansion episode of this show, where it's just us rambling for 2.5 hours about, could there be a team in Cheyenne? No.
That should be like an audio-visual one where we can like fight over a map essentially as we're doing this.
Oh, absolutely!
And it's just us on our phones Googling populations.
I could see this shit now.
Hey, keep it in mind.
Yeah. any case, we have other expansion news we got to talk about. Atlantic League. There seems to be movement in the case of Charleston, Lexington, and Staten Island. We knew about 2 of these 3. I heard about Lexington. I think you probably have heard about Lexington. I think we're both in lockstep in that Frontier League seems to be the destination there.
Yeah. Now the bigger thing from I've from people I've talked to had trouble finding sourcing on that.
Okay.
Until very recently, and what has sort of come around, at least I will admit this is now my theory based on the rumors and what I know to be facts and what I suspect to be facts. I think Lexington's ownership has not told the players about this, which is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, if they're about to be unemployed, they'd like to know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the case. I hate that. And at this point, I'll say the thing, which I've been holding for a while because I've been hesitant to start. I tend to go easy on Lexington because I think people just think I'm biased against it when I'm really not. Yeah, man. When it comes, whatever they do next year, I don't know what the plan is necessarily. They need a new manager.
Okay.
Because Barry Lyons is not it. Like,
that was a Nepo hire, no?
Yeah, exactly, and it shows. Like I have heard from as many people about Barry Lyons as I've heard about Gastonia, which is saying something. So
that's an indictment.
He's not. Yeah, it's like Edgardo Alfonso vibes meets like the weird temperament of like Pete and Caviglia combined with like the lack of focus and care of like, call it Lexington's former ownership. Nailed it. It is a bizarre situation, man. Like,
this feels like,
look, I'm tempted to believe he's giving his best and all that, but the fit ain't there. And like, if they want to be successful in whatever league, they need somebody who knows how to operate in Indy ball. And like, I think you saw it, the way guys were jumping ship. The start they got to the second half, the roster moves that happened throughout the year. It is definitely a situation that needs to be watched going into next year.
What you just described to me was basically like in the 1800s, you know, when Murfreesboro was popping off, and they go ahead and take like all the drinks people didn't finish, just throw them into one jug and then serve that at a cheaper rate. Basically that.
Yeah, and I mean, like this has real effects. Like I've heard from a couple of people now that I'm not saying that means a fact, but I'm saying that substantiates it when people are telling me it from very different independent sides. That like part of Ronnie Dawson leaving to play national was he just wasn't going to play for Barry anymore. Like the vibe's bad, man. So I'm hoping that Lexington gets that right. They seem to be doing some things right from an organizational standpoint. I think for Lexington, I think Frontier League is the right move. I think their overhead needs to be minimized as much as possible with the option that, hey, maybe someday they can start to take a little more risk where they can just continue to put that extra money, you know, into the ballpark and the product. I think that's good. That place needs a lot of work. I think there was overhead that they did not expect when they took that team on. So I think this is if they're going Frontier, I'm encouraging that. I've heard it from a few people now. However, I do not encourage it if they're not being forthright with players, which also seems like a possibility here.
I would second that too. Yeah, I've heard it as well that Lexington to Frontier next year is the plan. Charleston, the same boat there. Which, do we know if Charleston's made note of that to their guys, seeing as their season's practically speaking done?
So I'm hearing that Charleston's looking more like a 2025 option, along with potentially Staten. I have not. So with Charleston, I've heard. I've talked about this before. I'm more confident because I've heard it, you know, a year ago, literally from the owner of that team that he wants to leave the Atlantic League.
Okay,
so that makes sense. When it comes to Staten Island, I don't really. That's a front office I'm not that well connected into, but I know that it would seem that the profit has not been there that they are happy with. I know there's been moments where they were really unhappy with dynamics of Long Island at times. I don't know if that was an open thing between them and Long Island or it was just some way they felt, but I don't think they made much of a secret of it, whether they want to or not. I could see them definitely want to make a move, and they fit well within the Frontier League's lane, the footprint. I think the Frontier League is
one that can move west, so it's doesn't have Gateway out on
an island.
Just trying to move out and out and out toward Gateway as much as possible to minimize the travel in the west. Trying to again solidify the east more as well, get rid of the grays. I don't know if they're very comfortable with the jackals as they are, so I think they're also looking to ways that they can expand to 18, or maybe they're dropping a couple markets out and to instead of expand to strengthen, which is I always am willing to encourage a league to do that. Look, if they ain't asking me life, but you don't always need to expand. You can strengthen. You can shorten up your league and strengthen it. Paperless league. Think about it.
Nope, they're going to expand anyway.
Oh God, I know. I just think they need to. I think I would, if I'm the Frontier League, I'd be very careful with Charleston. I think Staten Island would be an interesting and cool call for them. I think it's a worthy experiment to go towards Staten Island. That's a new sort of range for them. I like it.
So, a couple of thoughts on that. One, I heard Charleston and Lexington for next year. That's what I heard. I haven't heard anything about Staten Island, so I can't really comment on that. That being said, I heard of a third market for Frontier League, and I guess we could kind of just intermix Frontier and Atlantic League talk here because, they're pretty intertwined at this point. That other market does have baseball in it right now. It's a college market. I don't want to say which one it is until I get, double confirmation on it. But they're no strangers to professional ball. I'll leave it at that. It would also fit. It's more in the East, so I could see that solving one issue there. And supposedly they're going to take the role of the Grays there, so you would just basically expand by 2 and replace the Grays with that college team. That said, that's why I'm not sold necessarily on the Staten Island thing, if for nothing else. And I don't doubt that they're not happy with the relationship with Long Island. That's been cantankerous for some time. And likewise, I don't think the profit's there, like you said. So I could see them jumping over. I just think if they jump over, there needs to be an additional team coming over there with them. And that would bring them to 20 at that point, which was the supposed stated goal back when they merged with the Can-Am.
Yeah. And piggyback off that, I do agree. I think Staten Island is the most likely to not happen. In fact, I would say it's below 50-50, but that is at least was I've heard talked about. And I originally heard Staten Island as a more immediate thing. Of course, that was more in the rumor stage from what I was getting. As I get more reliable sourcing, I'm starting to hear back toward the next year and 2025. And with that, I wonder if it was supposed to be earlier and then it didn't work out. And now they're well, maybe the year after, I don't know. Also, there's probably a minimum number of years they got to play with the Atlantic. So it's neither here nor there. I do think while we're on it, you got to wonder what's going on with Gastonia in the Atlantic League. True. I think, there's rumors of potential owners floating around. The big flex is that right now, Gastonia, they had a hearing last week, I guess, about the land owned by Brandon Bellamy, the owner, that surrounds the ballpark. And he originally wanted to do commercial and I think commercial, but also some sort of maybe con or something. I don't know.
Like a mixed use?
I think it's highway thing. What was that?
Like kind of a mixed use thing too, or?
Yeah, I think so. And it sounds like they're trying to zone it. The city is back to purely residential.
Ooh, okay.
And non-commercial, which would be basically really put him up against it if he's trying to turn that thing for profit. There's rumors they could be up to $5 million in debt.
No,
I haven't saying that, but I think we could be coming to a head there.
Yeah, just to jump in real quick on the rezoning to residential. Yep. Would that be single family rezoning or would that be multifamily? Because with multifamily, you could absolutely make the money back through condos.
I don't know that one. Okay. I feel like it is single family just based on the direction they're pushing. It's pretty transparent what they're trying to do.
Okay. Yeah, if it's single family, then he ain't making his money back on that shit. But if he could, making it basically condos or apartment buildings, those will sell. They'll definitely turn profit on it. And I think you'd have an easier time trying to pass it off in any sort of a public forum to say, hey, we're building more housing. That's an easier sell than, hey, we're going to do single family housing. That's not really what anybody wants. It's there. If it pre-exists, people will defend it to the very end. But
yeah, I think
Yeah, I don't know. We're getting into the weeds
Yeah.
on that. That's definitely coming to a head on whether or not there's going to be, like whether or not there's actually going to be something that happens that either keeps Bellamy and like pulls him in or pushes him away. The timing of that's going to be very important, because if there is a new potential owner, that's one thing. Hell, for all we know, part of this could still be like involved in, like, and maybe there's a new owner who wants it zoned differently, even, or see if it can be zoned differently. Like, we don't really know what's going on there. But what we do know is the city's not happy with Bellamy. Bellamy is in a bad spot with the city, its citizens, all that. It's going to really hurt his ability to make some money. So we need to see if he makes a decision here. I'm not sure that this team under his ownership I'm not sure he can own this team for another year. I don't know if the money's there. In which case, whatever time he calls it quits is going to be very impactful, because if he does it late, if he does it like 2 months from now, I don't think there might not be time to turn it around with a new ownership and like get that thing going in time for a Atlantic League season without a significant amount of help. There's also a possibility maybe Atlantic League, they're already dipping into their sort of like ownership slush fund of like, in case of emergency, like
the bailout, the bank
to
money,
pay players. So maybe they do that for a year. There's so many options going on there, but it's worth keeping in mind, especially if the American Association's going out the southeast way. Like, that's interesting. And also for keeping in mind, like, hey, the Atlantic League could be losing teams, and trying to keep an even number is going to be interesting, because now you're looking at Hagerstown going out, possibly Lexington coming in, and then you're like, oh, it's even, but then who knows what's going on in Gastonia. That's all I mean to say there. And the additional point being, I typically write off the draft league teams as possible expansion options at this point. But let's maybe, because I just think they would have done it before if they wanted to, for the most part. But I know, they're not really happy, and Frederick is making the move. And with that, as I said before we really started today, that is a 16 league, the draft league. Those GMs know each other. Those front offices know each other. The owners know each other. If one team is making the move to the Atlantic League, they probably know a good bit of the details. They know a good bit of like the whys and the perks of it, and look for maybe a little more movement there, especially as this draft league falls down to 5 teams. I don't know how sustainable that's going to be moving forward.
I would agree on the sustainability, struggle with that word, of the draft league. The only thing I would say is, if I was a draft league owner, I have a close personal relationship with Frederick, I'd watch Lexington as a cautionary tale. Obviously, there's a lot more going on with that situation, but they're all on a similar single A or low A level there. And they've tried to make that move to the Atlantic League. They saw how difficult it was. Frederick's obviously in a better position off the field. On the field, still not where we want to be, but that's something that can always get fixed. Obviously, the level of play doesn't necessarily determine the crowd. That's, I think, kind of holds true. Meanwhile, you look over at the Frontier League, and you have Lexington now getting ready to make that move to drop down to the Frontier League. You've seen Tri-City, that was on a very similar level. They were a New York Penn League team, and a lot of the teams that are in that draft league were New York Penn League teams. So you see, hey, they're doing pretty well up there. They seem to be relatively controversy-free, except for, the once or twice a year Pete decides to say something or do something that he probably shouldn't do, but we're all like, it's Pete. That's what Pete does. And if I look at the situation, like, the teams that are going to the Frontier League seem to be doing better on the field, off the field. The Atlantic League teams, they don't seem to be great. Plus, let's say you're just Mahoning Valley, because I know you mentioned them before we jumped on. That's really one of the few teams I know in the draft league, so we're just going to go with them for the sake of example. They may not be the best one to use here, but we're just going to use them because they're better than Team A. If I'm Mahoning Valley, I'm like, which one of these leagues do I want to join? The Frontier League, where people are flocking to them like a lifeboat, and generally speaking is pretty, well ran. We're going to ignore the current situation in Patterson for a moment. And my other choice is the Atlantic League, where it's like, okay, we have teams fleeing from here, or rumored to be fleeing from here, and no immediate expansion market on the horizon. And there's apparently financial issues in a lot of these front offices. Where am I more likely to go? It feels like, at least from the outside in, the Frontier League seems to fit better with the culture of the team that's been, previously established for many years. And if you're going from like only kind of sort of paying your players, would you rather go from that to paying the Atlantic League salaries, which are presumably higher than the Frontier League ones, or go to the Frontier that's kind of like a mini step, and it's much more in line culturally with what your fan base was used to when you were affiliated. Because I remember that being one point that Tri-City made when they went to the Frontier as opposed to the Atlantic was we wanted a comparable schedule to what we had. The Atlantic League season was too long. It's not what we're used to. And it feels like Lexington ignored that, and I was learning the hard way about that. Obviously, again, complicated situation. There's differences there. But it feels like that Tri-City route and the Tri-City way of thinking is kind of the way that's winning out. So I do wonder if you're a draft league team, if you're not thinking along those lines, because I'm sure they still have a good relationship with Tri-City, or at least some of the people over there.
Yeah, and I'll end it with this. I know I went long already on this, so yeah. I'll end up with this, something that I mean I'm putting a lot of my my efforts into lately. So yeah. I'm gonna have less to say on other things today. Yeah. My two things I'll put out. One is a fact, which is there's one league, one of the big 480 leagues where teams are like organizations are trying to leave. That's a flag. You know, if you're a team looking for a potential landing spot and you are going to make the sizable investment that it takes to go into the professional baseball realm, and you're trying to find the right spot so that money comes back to you as soon as possible. Number one thing is that teams are leaving. Number two, unrelated, is that owners talk, and they talk to each other. They talk to other owners in leagues. They talk to owners they know. They talk to owners that are formerly of leagues who are maybe more freed up to talk about things. Yeah. And they're going to share that, like, behind the scenes, as we know, even just from people covering the league, the Atlantic League tends to be a mess. And with that, this is something that I've been working hard on lately, and I'm hoping I can soon get a video together on it. But it's just so hard to get people on the record when it comes to the powers that be in the Atlantic League. But what has been rumored, and I've heard it from enough people at this point that I'm like, it's a hell of a rumor to be going around from 4 or 5 independent ownership groups and people around them, for it to not have some sort of basis on what's actually happening here. But I'll give the minute-long version of it, which is essentially when you join the Atlantic League, like many leagues, you have to pay for your place in that league. I think the assumption of many people would be that you're paying the league, and be that a league office or a collection of league owners, typically, that they would split the money on that one. So again, teams, just like in Major League Baseball, the owners profit by expanding because they get the entry fee that a team pay. Yeah. So that is a sizable sum of money. I typically hear it's in the $2 to $3 million range. Could be over that. I suspect it's not, but it's still hanging around 2 to 3. But point is, it's not a little bit of money for anybody involved. But what I've been hearing potentially is a situation that owners are not happy about within the league is that when that has been paid by some of the recent members of the league, like the recently joined members of the league, that has not gone to the owners, because instead of buying a new spot in the league, they bought an existing spot in the league that was owned by Frank Bolton, the league's founder and the league's funder and head. That the money would then seemingly go to him, is what is being rumored, not to the ownership groups at large. And then that would be despite the fact that the annual membership fee being paid by teams seemingly has not been paid by his teams, because the teams that he used to own that no longer exist, you were possibly buying those spots instead of just whatever. It's the idea of, fake, when you get $1 out of the bank, it's like you put money in the bank, you put $1 in, you get $1 back. Who's to say it's the same dollar or not? Who's to say it's the same membership spot or not? He's just it's their membership spot. That's my team's, despite they're not being claimed. But apparently, I'm sure he would argue that he always puts playing money in the league and that's part of it, whatever. This is all so hard to confirm because Frank Bolton pulls the strings, he runs things, but that's it. And I don't know. I think Long Island people tend to listen to this, so I'm sure I'll be getting some sort of message soon. But just if that lands, it's gonna be a hell of a YouTube video. It's already been a hell of a story. I've got about 30 minutes of video on it already, and I'm gonna figure out. But
it will also guarantee that I probably never work in the Atlantic League again. That's on me, but I'm willing to live with that.
Oh, I can hear the flock of ducks coming for you right now.
Bro, yeah, I know. It's all right. I've already gotten some interesting responses from people. I was like, okay, thanks. I'm glad I reached out.
Yeah, because, I mean, it is an interesting proposition there because, I mean, you do notice he always does jump on for the teams that aren't doing so well, and you can never tell, like, are you jumping on to try and save them, or is there another reason for it? Because there is a pattern with it. So on the surface, like, definitely appears that I don't have the same information you have because, well, you're like the, I'm trying to find the best insight I can think of. I was going to say Adam Scheffler, but that's almost insulting. So, like,
I ask weird questions. Yeah, passing. That's fair. I'll take that one. That's fun. Yeah. I like that.
I like the Jeff Passan.
Not so much on the transaction thing, but on like reporting things where the league is like, we're going to fight you.
Oh.
We're going to stop.
Then I found the perfect example. Rick Whitehead, or Westhead, from the NHL that got Chicago.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, because he broke Chicago with the whole Kyle Beach
That's
thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so I don't know. Look, it's coming together. I don't have a release date on it. It's the first time mentioning it even publicly at this point, but it's something. But I think it explains a little bit of the flight away from the Atlantic League currently. Is that, like, if that is the way things have been going, it's obvious why ownership is already kind of at their wits' end with the league.
Yeah, it definitely is. And honestly, like, it continues to add on. And, like, I want to build on it more, even though I know we got, like, probably 45 minutes worth of playoff talk, so I'll just wrap it up here on this, even though I feel like I want to keep going on the train. But it makes me wonder more and more, because I mentioned to you a couple weeks back, or maybe it was only a week ago now. Yeah, I forget. But how I said, I think more and more we're transitioning away from a leagueless structure, where it's just teams are going to kind of go and play wherever they see fit. And it feels more and more like we're getting to that point where, like, what do you really need leagues for? It feels like we're going almost the college football route of it, where it's like you used to have, like, regional conferences, and that's just where you were at. You were just playing your region, and that was all there was. And for two very different reasons, it's like, well, now you're not necessarily region locked anymore. You can kind of pick and choose between leagues. And more, it feels like we're going to be sorting ourselves into, like, all right, there's two leagues here. You have one for, like, your more AA level talent, and one for, like, your below AA level talent. And it's your choice there. And I say it's different, even though the root cause of it is still money. Only in the case of college football, it's TV contracts. In the case of independent ball, it's like, well, these teams are expensive, and we're not seeing the same return that we were seeing back in 03 and even in 2010. It's like these attendance numbers are dwindling. We don't have the same income streams. And realistically, if you look at the big four, only one of them is not doing anything to try and correct the problem, right? Everybody else is trying new things. It may not be working per se. It might not be the right direction, but they're attempting solutions. They're modernizing. One league is opting not to. And so either you have to say they really are comfortable in their position, or there's a reason why they're not doing it. And that's going to beg inquiry from that on.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. It's so weird to figure out what the Atlantic League's doing. And I think it becomes more transparent as everybody else sort of steps up and, like, does, interesting and,
as people make moves
for the future,
that
they maybe are content with where they are for the most part, and they're just, it's sure they want new markets or whatever, but it seems like as long as the people that matter are making money, they're like, yeah, all right, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, fair enough. Which I'll use this as my transition off of expansion talk for the week, which I think was very thoroughly entertaining, and I'm sure, and for like the next month and a half, we're going to have this conversation every week, which is going to be so much fun. But we'll transition off it by going, you see the final score of that Quebec game tonight?
Yes, and they didn't blow it.
Yep, 14-5. It appears as though TJD came in and gave up two. They were like, we're just going to throw something out there to get through this game. And Evansville was like, we ain't getting swept. They were dead certain on that. So, good for them.
They're like, we scored 12 runs past 2 nights and didn't work out. So we'll score 13 tonight.
Well, 14 tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They tacked on that extra. I forgot about that.
Yep, 3 in the 8th. But
it's a good. There's a home run there too, so we're mad. But and the more I think about, we talked before. I tweeted about it, but I talked with you before about who's going to throw Game 4 for Quebec, and by the time this comes out, I mean, we'll be hours away from knowing if we're right. We might already know, but I do think that Gollert Ramirez piggyback from Quebec makes more and more sense. Especially we talked about like, well, who's going to pitch in Game 5 if necessary? It's like, out of the pen, not as the starter.
Yeah.
Because you think Saldana will be the starter, but if you go 2 starters back to back, you might take that weight off the bullpen. So you have those options.
True. That is true. Yeah, because you are safe.
The more I think about it, the more it makes sense.
Yeah, because you figure Gollert could probably get through 4. He got through the first rotation through. If you could just ask him to dig in and get you through 4, Ramirez could get you through another 4, and then you gauge it off of that. If it's a close game where you got the chance to win, you use a good bullpen arm. If it's a game that's out of hand, then you just throw whoever out there, and then you have all but 2 pitchers really at that point, because obviously Ramirez and then Gollert would be off the table, but everybody else would be all hands on deck. Last game of the year, no one's not available. We're still getting ahead of ourselves here, though, because last time we talked, Quebec was still locked in the series with New Jersey. In fact, that was just getting started. Evansville was still locked in there with Gateway. We were actually coming off a Kona Quigley monster shot to give them a series lead, 1-0. So I suppose we should recap those and then get ourselves up to speed here as to what's happening in the Frontier League playoffs. So that way we can get the Pioneer League handled and then the American Association handled, and then talk about what's happening in the Atlantic League, because there is movement there tonight. But starting Frontier League-wise, Quebec defeated New Jersey, as you could probably tell, but it took 3 games to do it. They took a loss in Game 1, which, as you will remember, had to be delayed due to the rain. It wound up going into extra innings before Keon Barnum hit a long monster shot to give them a victory in a walk-off fashion. That was after James Nelson hit a home run to tie the game there. Not great look if you are Quebec in that regard, although Keon really demolished that ball. It was a very nice home run there. Prince Fielder-esque, I may say. So you leave that game thinking, okay, New Jersey may actually be doing better than I expected, at least in my estimation. I figured Quebec was going to roll them, and that most certainly did not happen in Game 1. But Game 2 comes around, and keep in mind, now there is no rest day. They have played baseball on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 4 straight. They have to leave that walk-off game off of that, high emotional status, go up to Quebec, play the next day. They get shelled 14-2. I think that's to be expected. Just riding off of emotion and the fact that that's a long bus trip, and one team gets to go home and, sleep in their own bed. Another team gets to go sleep in a hotel room. Very different situation there. So we wind up in Game 3, which was a little competitive for a little while. And then Quebec kind of broke it open, 115-6, and just ended that jackal threat. Corrections, thoughts, and other issues in that series?
I don't even... not much to say on that one. I mean, Quebec's type of team where it's going to beat them, you got to have things going your way, and it just... What New Jersey did not need was no off day between games 1 and 2. And, huge win in Game 1. Awesome. I mean, that's the problem with their offense. It's always dangerous, but they didn't, we learned a lot about what a dangerous offense looks like in the rest of those games during that series, because Quebec, and I mean, hell, they're continuing on to this series right now with Evansville. I mean,
yeah.
They're fairly quiet tonight, but they still were scoring runs early before the game kind of got out of hand. There's levels to this, it seems like, and Jersey ran out of talent, essentially. I mean, it was always a concern. If you look at the roster, it's almost, when you look at how they're using their experience and different players, a lot of it was on the offensive side of the ball. So if you run to good pitching, that can be at least somewhat quieted. Meanwhile, on the pitching side, I think they had troubles getting people when to pitch and Hinchliffe.
hell, I don't know. I'm a veteran pitcher. I'm not sure I want to like gamble my future paychecks and career playing at Hinchliff and that weird outfield situation they got. So they had you go with what you got, and Quebec was happy enough to make the most of it.
Yeah, that's the thing with Quebec is if there's weakness, they're going to jump on that in a heartbeat, and it's not going to be particularly close either. They're the kind of team that will kill you, and you make a point about the veteran pitching, and obviously that is an issue with New Jersey, even though the numbers kind of bear out it wasn't as bad as it may seem, although the early results and the early feedback definitely did not make you feel the most confident that if you're a pitcher there. So that's obviously going to work against them.
The vibes are bad if you're looking to sign.
Exactly. And I feel like, and you may be able to back me on this, but I feel like there's a large contingent of those on the coaching staffs and playing rosters across not just Indy Ball, but all of baseball that aren't exactly the most analytically minded. They're more vibes based. Yep. Would that be fair to say? Because I know I've certainly had managers that I was talking to going, analytics is crap. I don't even want to use this shit. I ignore it. And I was thinking,
that's familiar.
Yeah. And I was like, but okay. I wasn't going to get into it because I'm not even the biggest analytics guy myself. But I'm like, I do acknowledge that there is some useful information here. Like, I'm not running my whole like in-game strategy off of the numbers, but like, you know, it's definitely factoring into my roster building.
Right.
That's absolutely going to be a factor in it. It's never going to be 100%. Baseball's still a game, you know, that's being played on the field. Weird stuff's going to happen, and a lot of the job of a coaching staff is also personnel management. I mean, that's a large chunk of it too. There's stuff that can't really be accounted for because it's still, you know, human beings playing the game. That's something numbers can't really always factor in. But, you know, there's pros and cons to everything. But regardless of the fact, it was hard to get pitching into New Jersey. And Quebec is a veteran team. They're a team that's been there. They know what to do when they're in that spot there. That coaching staff has been there, done that before. They're able to kind of impress that upon their team. And I don't think they really needed that. This is the Quebec team that had, a bad 4 weeks. And then from there on has been the Quebec team we know. And so, you know, it's one of those situations where I feel like it was just a bad matchup for New Jersey. And if they had the right opponent there, let's say it was Tri-City, I like New Jersey a lot better. It's just Quebec was such a good team that they were quite literally their equal. And when you get into the coin flip there, they were slightly better in the areas that wound up mattering the most.
Yeah, and I'm reminded back in it must have been December, I think it was. I was at the Black Sox open tryout thing in Jersey, and Scalabrini was there, and I had a really interesting conversation with him. Just I guess somebody who while there wasn't there long, they helped with roster building and the Atlantic League, and the Frontier League is a whole different world. And I was talking about what that takes and what it takes in a league where you've won a championship, and what is the next thing that you do. And he was right away. He was like, you need to tear it down. He was like, this is not a league built for running the same team back over and over again. Like, you cannot do that in the Frontier. He's like, yeah, it's gotten easier since it was the Can-Am, but still, you're working in limits of, you've got guys you love and guys that are core of the fan base that you necessarily can't get rid of because they're, the clubhouse guy needs to stay, but they're bumping to veteran level now, and all of your bets are contributing on the field, so you have to make a decision. So immediately, he's in that mode, and the way he talked about understanding, he seems like, compared to some of the other people I've talked to, not all of them, there's some really good minds within the Frontier League front office, but the way that he seems to think through the challenges of having, guys who are about to age up to the next experience level for the roster restrictions, and thinking on how other teams' rosters are, facing restrictions, and how he can sort of finesse that so that he is out of the way of potential issues coming up, while securing himself, the best possible roster, and also, making the most of other people's, tight situations when it comes to who's at what level of roster restrictions. So it was just very impressive. So, at no point is Quebec coming back into this after that weird like month or so surprising at all. It's one of those ones where I feel like there probably was very little panic over there. He seems like a guy who has a clear concept of how that frontier season sort of ebbs and flows. And it's good to see that like somebody putting in the work and somebody that is passionate about it and passionate about Indy ball is succeeding. That makes me happy.
Well, I think it's also part of the passion, the experience that he's had in Indy ball that, drives the success as well. I mean, he's been there and he's done that for so many times. I mean, look at all the championship series he was in between the Can-Am and now the Frontier. How many of them wind up in losses? Not many.
Yeah, you're right. That's how to build it.
Yeah, I mean, like I can only really think of one, maybe two. I mean, like I went through after the Quebec series ended, and it's crazy. Like I do implore everyone to go to Wikipedia and look up the Quebec Capitals and look at their season by season record. It's absolutely insane. And of course, we got to talk about the other team that they were playing against, which is the Evansville Otters. They defeated Gateway in 3, as you again can probably tell. Evansville took game 1 with the Kona Quigley shot. They lost game 2 15-5, and then they won 9-7 to clinch it. Although Gateway made it interesting late, Evansville was largely in control in that one. A series where Evansville, I think, just kind of keeps riding the high. They beat a very playoff, veteran-savvy team in Schaumburg in round 1. They defeated a team that I think we both kind of agreed was more of a paper tiger in Gateway, but still was one of the better teams in the league, even if overhyped. They still managed to get through and beat up on some good opponents here, and they've held their own so far against Quebec. Obviously, they scored a win last night. You could very well argue, if not for 2 bad pitches, they are lifting a championship right now. However, that's not exactly how baseball works, so maybe a little presumptuous on that, but still a solid postseason so far from Evansville.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're a well put together team. A lot of arms that can get you out of the pen, which is cool. I like a team with pitching depth in independent ball because it's so hard to do and even harder to keep together once you have it. But I'm just trying to think like games where I've really seen them get out of hand on the mat. Like, honestly, it says a lot to Ottawa's tagging them the way they are. But let me see, who is it? Tim Holgraffer, who has 122 innings pitched, which is silly, and a 2.65 ERA on the year. And then he's been struggling in the playoffs, which is a shame because he's had a good year. But the point is, there's good depth. I like Braden Scott, the way they put together that rotation. Parker Brahms, my God. I'm looking at 3 different names here on my sketchy notepad that I've been using to take notes as the playoffs go on. But the concern is just that offense, man. They have essentially amounts to a below average offense. They've been finally scored a lot of runs against Quebec, which is very impressive. But every game, I'm like, oh God, is this the one where it turns on them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean in regards to the offense there. I mean, I kind of feel bad for them as far as championship series goes. They put up 6 runs in each of them, but this is also a league where you need more than 6 runs. Likewise, you look at their previous series. Yeah, you got 9, but it was a 9-7 game. They got blown out. They only got 5 the other one. Realistically, if not for Kona Quigley, just demolishing a pitch, they very well lose that series, right? I mean, we distinctly pointed out here, as we were recording last week, that first game against Gateway, it was some shaky fundamental baseball. Man, that was not quality work. There was a bases loaded situation. You have a catcher holding onto his mask and one handing a ball. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Dakota Phillips drops that ball. And then a base hit comes in, scores 2. All of a sudden there, it doesn't really matter about the Kona Quigley home run because it's still a 5-4 game. So I see what you mean by the offense there, where it's it's more timely than it is anything else. I can only really point to one game where you had, enough, and that was game 3, which is the 9-7 game, which, I mean, there really shouldn't be a league on earth where if you score 9 runs, that's not enough to win a game. Pioneer League excluded, of course, but
Baker's League excluded. Yeah, and I'm just looking at it.
Like, I don't mean to be harsh, but
no, I agree. But it's weird because they continue to get it done as essentially the opposite team that they've been all year. So I'm looking at it. I mean, they gave up. They were basically tied for the lead league in home runs, allowed. And I mean, they're tied with Windy City, so take that for what it is. 0.7 home runs per 9. So far, they give up, 8 home runs now in these playoff games. So they're over that's for sure, by a good margin. But then when it comes to like their offense, they're middle of the road. They're middle of the road on home runs. Hit 6 home runs tonight, dude.
Damn.
Good Lord. Like, I mean, it was funny. I was watching the game at Cormier, Iowa. We talked and I prepped and I did some work. Like, I did not know they absolutely popped on Quebec like that tonight.
That's part of it though. Is like, at what point is timely offense good offense, right? Like, is that going to be good enough to carry them through? I think we mentioned this either last week or the week before, where it's like, at a certain point, it doesn't really matter if you're a good offensive team, if you're still winning games and you're still scraping by. You know, when we said, if you're just getting by in games, are you a good team or are you a lucky team? And like, when you get to this time of year, it doesn't really matter if you're good or lucky, as long as you're getting the results.
Yeah, and I think there's something to say on the, like, you said, like, baseball doesn't work that way, where it's like, well, it's one bad pitch, you know, we talk about those 2 losses they've had. But, I mean, if you think about it, there's something, you know, you can pull it apart and say, like, are they just getting the timely hits in a way? Like, 6 home runs tonight to score those runs. They've gotten 13 home runs now across their 7 playoff games. But at the same time, they struck out 10 times tonight, 15 times last night, 14 times in game 3 with Gateway, 13 times in game 2 with Gateway. Like, they're getting punched out and they are getting hits, but like, you wonder how sustainable that is for how long. And on the same side, I mean, a lot of what they're, you know, giving up pitching wise has been, you know, bad timing. Like, it's been 3 hits stack up on each other and then all of a sudden you get, you know, now we lost. Like, that's how it's gone. But then tonight they go up 12 hits, won 5 runs, 3 earned. Like, well, I don't know what to make of it. This is, Quebec has been odd. I don't know, 14 runs tonight is out of character, but like, that clutch hitting thing, they had 11 walk-offs, like 9 of them at home this year. Like, this is not new. That is the Quebec team you kind of expect. And they got some dudes who can chuck it out of the pen. But this Evansville team is just so weird. I don't even know what's showing up day to day, but they're entertaining as hell to watch. I like it. It's good to watch, I guess, unless, fielding's getting too squirrely, but I'm glad Evansville's the team that's representing the West. I guess is what I mean to say. I was underwhelmed with the West Division this year, but I'm glad that at the very least a kind of a team you can root for and an entertaining team to watch has made it. And one that offers a weird and confusing mix that might be enough to challenge Quebec at times.
I'll agree with that. They've definitely made it a more entertaining series than I think, say, Gateway would have.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because Gateway, I mean, they weren't just going to get demolished. Is really what it comes down to. Although I am happy Gateway got there. They've been a team that needed some success for some time now, so I'm happy to see that they finally got something. And I'm glad to see Steve Brooks at the helm over there, too. They're in good hands over there to, really keep moving forward and going in the right direction. So I'm happy about that. I think Schaumburg would have been interesting, too, because they just did this with Quebec last year. So maybe a little too NBA-ish, where we have repeats in the finals, but I think that could have been a fun thing, but I'm far from disappointed that Evansville is the guy, or the team rather, not the guy. There's a collection of guys, though, that are representing the West, too. I think that they are a bit of chaotic neutral in all of this, where you just don't know.
Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah, and so there's that. Oh, as far as tonight goes, too, it doesn't help when you're Quebec and you leave 14 guys on base.
That won't help. Can't do that.
Yeah. Jesmaniel Valentin, though, 8 guys left on base there. 1 for 5 on the day, bud. Not good.
Bubba, no.
One of them was bases loaded situation, so that's 4 of it. But even still, you can't do that, brother. You can't leave 8 guys on base.
Not the time.
Although Greg Bird played solid, 3 for 4.
Yeah, man.
It feels like there's 3 or 4 guys powering that Quebec offense. If you can get through like the first 5 guys in that lineup, but then again, TJ White and the Qua are there too. And Seidel is also a pretty damn good. Realistically, I actually come think, but there really is no weak spot in this lineup. Valentine's not killing the game either, but like still, he's not terrible.
Yeah, and TJ, I think he got hit in the wrist a while back, and you notice he still had moments where he's really looked good, but then there's at bats where he just looks off, and I wonder sometimes if that's still getting
fair. True. So, I think we kind of touched base on both the championship and the semifinal match there. Any other thoughts on Quebec? We mentioned earlier they had 2 walk-off victories, both 7-6. You could tell the writers are on strike because they just copy and paste the scripts on back-to-back nights in games 1 and 2. Obviously, this is going to go to 4. We talked a little bit about the strategy earlier of using 2 starting pitchers in game 4 tonight, meaning Saturday, as opposed to more traditional approach. Do we think this is going to go 4? Do we think this is going to go 5? Do we think it's going to be keeping it home in Canada, or is it going to be going to Evansville for the first time in a long time?
I'm going to use a cheat sheet. What did I say? I just did that math.
I think your math had Quebec as the favorite.
Yeah, but I think the math suggests it's more likely to go 5 at this point.
Okay.
I think when I ran the win probabilities, I took into account the pitching matchups, and we know that, as we discussed, it is a bit of a mixed bag going into game 4 for Quebec, but they do seem to have a better step going into game 5.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that would be my guess. I'm going to say now goes 5.
Goes 5? End result is
I'm still going Quebec.
Okay, I'm waiting.
I think we shouldn't. I think I'll feel differently, and this sounds very dumb and obvious. I would feel differently if Evansville can win comfortably again tomorrow, because the reason why, even typically, the nerdy behind the scenes is, even typically if you're looking at a team in this situation where they have to win multiple games in a row to survive and win a series, even if they win all the way up, they force it to the last game, the odds tend to turn on them a little bit because it historically takes so much to make it to that game, and there's opportunities along the way for the other team to start sort of protecting their own resources and their own arms. So, if they can continue to save their best arms and also win game 4, Evansville might, help out their position. But Quebec will be a slight favorite in game 5, and I'm willing to go that way.
See, I'm keeping with Quebec just because I believed in Quebec for so long now. I'm not going to, not keep riding the bandwagon. Sorry, Chris. But, I got to keep with my Quebecs. That said, I do agree if it's a comfortable win or even like a confident win, I do think there is something to it with that larger win. I think there's a confidence effect there, kind of like a snowball down the hill, where if you're able to start to put together 2, you have some momentum, all the reasons you mentioned as well, I think it starts to really add up, and I think it becomes a lot more difficult to win it. Already, they've shown that they can push Quebec to the brink, and now they've shown that they can really whoop Quebec. It's just a matter of they don't have any room for error. Quebec still has that luxury. And
let's not sleep on the fact, too, that, Evansville, you could argue, basically won those first 2 games.
Yeah.
They put together a more complete game up to the last inning, and then they couldn't keep it together.
Yeah. Fair enough. But at the same point in time, though, I do wonder if that game gets out of hand early, let's say, 4th inning, it's like a 9-2 game in favor of Evansville. If you're Quebec, do you just start lining up the pieces for Sunday?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Just say, 100%. All right, which one of you fielders want to go out and pitch 5 innings?
Who's going to wear one today?
Exactly. Like, I feel like that's the obvious decision where it's just like, all right, we're setting it up. And then if we're saying essentially a full rested Quebec team versus a full rested Evansville team, that's why I side with Quebec on it, because I feel like if we're going mano a mano in a must-win situation, I feel like it's Quebec. I really feel like it is. So,
yeah, and I have a weird thing I look at, and I've mentioned it before talking about other teams I think that I've seen it with this year. I think winning teams have shut down innings, and winning teams also respond when they give up runs. And it's hard to, game 1, it held pretty true with Quebec. I mean, what was it? Evansville scored two in the fifth. Quebec scored two in the fifth. Then Evansville scored two in the eighth. Quebec scored two in the eighth. Evansville scored two in the ninth. Quebec scored three in the ninth. Game over. Like, they answer right away. It was less so in game two, but I still think it's something worth noting that Evansville found a way, though, to do it 3 times tonight. So, hey, though actually that said Quebec did it 3 times tonight too. So, hey, that's what you get in the championship.
Yes, I'm also
trying to hold the team back when you put up some runs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Evansville in game 2 had the 4th inning where they got 4. Quebec had the 8th and 9th where they had 5. So it does go either way, and I think it goes back to what we've been saying, which is championship teams avoid the blow-up inning. They don't let it happen. They stop the bleeding at 2. And I do wonder, again, if part of the reason it got out of hand tonight was a matter of Scalabrini saying, all right, this one's out of hand at 9-5, because when it got to be 9-5, it was, the 5th inning? So they got one back in the 6th, gave it right back up. Okay, 7, 8, 9. Okay, let's put up the white flag on this one. Let's start to set the chess pieces up for tomorrow. I wonder if that's part of it too, and why they didn't have the punch for punch thing. Now, obviously, a bit different. Evansville got to run all but 1 inning tonight, so that's, that's coming out playing with fire. I also do wonder how much of it may have been like a dead cat bounce, right? Where you get a little bit of fight there because like, we're not going to go down in a sweep. And then it's like, oh yeah, I forgot why we were in this position to begin with. I don't necessarily think that's the case because games 1 and 2 happened because we saw game 3 against Gateway, but they do find themselves in this position a lot where it's a really close game the whole way through, but they do seem to always raise up to the competition level. So it really makes it tougher to call in that sense.
Yeah, I think you're right on a lot there. Yeah, man. I don't know. I still like Quebec, but I'm impressed by what Evansville's been putting out there.
Definitely. So let's keep moving. Let's move over to the Pioneer League now. This will be fairly quick. We'll run through pretty much their whole playoff structure. Their championship starts. Actually, I think it starts today, the 16th. So that's an interesting little tidbit there. Ogden defeated Rocky Mountain in 3. Ogden dropped game 1 11-0. At this point, we were both feeling pretty good about our thoughts on Rocky Mountain going to a championship game because Ogden had been absolutely dog trash in the second half, and Rocky Mountain was pretty much the opposite of that. Then Ogden was like, hey, wait, we know how to play baseball. 1-9-4 and then won a 3-1 final, which is a very odd score in the Pioneer League, but they managed to do that. So good on them. We'll hit Ogden real quick, and then we'll move over to the other series, which involves my Mustangs with a grade A social media, by the way.
Yo, electric.
Yeah. Love those dudes.
Yeah. But when it comes to Ogden, I mean, they showed up in ways we didn't expect.
Yeah. I
mean, that's, I know, a simple way of putting it, but that first game, I was like, this could be
over
pretty
quick.
Yeah, we could be in the 3rd inning next game talking about the championship already. But yeah, I mean, they held Rocky Mountain to 7 runs in those last 2 games. Like, yeah, for those who didn't see it, it was 11-0 in game 1. So good Lord. But, then Ogden, they'll bounce right back. They heard, hey, if anything, no strangers to getting punched in the face this year because they had a rough second half. So, perhaps they weren't fazed by that, but, Brock Gilliam was terrific in game 2, or is it game 3? I think. Yeah, he did game 3. It was just good, solid ball all around, which is something that occasionally you don't see much of in the Pioneer League, not to shade anybody, but, I talked a little bit on Twitter about how good Dan Kubiak is out of the bullpen for them. He's a guy who's pitched in the Atlantic League. I don't think he's old either. Hold on, let me check his age because he's done the full tour now. He's done the American. He's done the
Frontier,
the Pioneer now, obviously, and the Atlantic League. And he's had mixed results at times. He has some good results at times, but everywhere he's going, he struck out guys. And he is really continued to do that. And I don't understand how I never understood how he ended up in the Pioneer League. I don't understand why he's still there, but 27, I mean, I guess still, why would he not be there? He's barely got professional experience. He did not pitch from 2016 to 2021. So he's only got 2 years of pro experience going into the season. So if you're worried about your roster spots, like, he's solid. Like, it's
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, last year in the Frontier League, at 3.21 ERA with Washington, 12.7 Ks per nine. Crazy. He's had some difficult times in the short Atlantic League stint.
Yeah.
Very short, though. Can't even count that. Cleaned up in Washington, actually, the year before, too, with a 1.3 ERA, essentially.
Doesn't he feel like
Ks per
a hired gun for the Atlantic League in the playoff situation?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. I wonder.
Welcome to Lancaster.
Yeah, honestly, not a bad call.
I'd say welcome to Gastonia, but he'd like to get paid.
Oh, God.
I'm going to keep doing that until they start paying their people.
Yeah, that's fair. I support it. But all in all, sorry to get distracted on that one. Yeah, Ogden, they're very impressive. I'm glad that we're seeing more of the first half version of them than the second half. It is, again, silly that we can get away with the 2-half system and basically punting half a season. Again, also, it's silly that Glacier did not make the playoffs because they won a game. Ridiculous. But yeah, man, that's we won't sully the very entertaining Pioneer League playoffs that we've had. We can talk about how crazy that Missoula series was with Billings.
Oh, believe me, we're about to go there because I have not been able to watch much Pioneer League baseball because they went to the evil empire of Flow Sports. So I, again, refuse to pay money to them. So that's where we're at there.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. It definitely hampers my ability to cover this, but hey, they made their decision.
Yep.
Any case,
we're okay with less coverage, so well.
Exactly. Hey, if you don't want free media, that's perfectly fine and good. That's their decision. I know my Mustangs would never co-sign on something like that, and obviously this BS second half playoff system has helped my Mustangs because they have managed to get in. And in case anyone's confused, it's because Billings is always responding and is very active on the platform formerly known as Twitter. And they'll like stuff that's just openly critical of other teams or the league itself. They don't really care, which is just funny, phenomenal. And I love that about them. So I started calling them my Mustangs, even though I probably have more connections with Missoula than Billings, but whatever. And, as I tweeted out to them last night when they were trailing at one point, I sent them the Simpsons clip where it's, remember, if you lose, you're out of the family. They did not lose. They're still in the family. They're still my Mustangs. So whenever Yep. You're saying something? They won game 1, 8-5. They lost game 2, got thumped, sent to the glue factory, 13-3. And then they wanted to torment me last night by making a game that already started at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock my time, go 12 innings and not ending till 1 in the goddamn morning. So not a fan of that. But they won at 8-7 over Missoula, which honestly was a series where I was really happy with whichever team got there, solely because I'm a fan of the guys in Missoula. We've talked a lot about Mike Schlapp before and the way he builds a team and the kind of coach and manager he is. I like watching him succeed. He's the exact kind of guy I want to see succeed. And he's just a really great guy to talk to. So I'm always happy to see Missoula doing well. In the case of Billings, like I said, I obviously got the connection there, but they had to fight and claw to get in here. And it is a shame that the way they managed to get into this playoffs was through a team winning and then ruining said team's playoff spot. It feels like you should be able to win your way into the postseason. We've explained before the second half system sucks. Even if this is a rarity in it, it still should just be a non-possibility in it. And it's unfortunate how they got in here, but they've proven that they deserve their spot in here when you beat a Missoula team that was, a 65-game winner in the regular season, something along those lines.
Yeah, something like that.
So it's extremely strong Missoula team, and they went toe-to-toe with them, and they won it. So all marks to them. A fantastic job there.
Yeah, and just a re-emphasis on the need for fundies, boys.
Oh, God.
If you hadn't for anyone who didn't watch Game 3, decisive Game 3, Missoula is down 6-2 after 5. They work it back to a 6-5 game heading to the 9th. In the 9th inning, they lead it off with a double, and then was it Andrew Bernard? I want to say Austin Bernard. Jesus, but hey, you got the right guy. Just wrong name. Austin Bernard doubles.
He tries to extend to a triple. Again, this is leadoff. Instead of staying on second with nobody out and 1 run ties the game, he gets thrown out. Then they get a walk, and then right after the walk, Cameron Thompson comes up, hits a double, run scores. He tries to stretch it to a triple. He gets thrown out at third also. So the game could have already been over if Bernard didn't get thrown out. But Bernard, not maybe I don't want to say not understanding. It seems very insulting, but like not prioritizing the value of having a guy on base on second with nobody out in a 1-run game. And then again, Thompson being willing to roll the dice on having a tie game with 1 out and a runner on second, rolling the dice wanting to get to third. And yeah, it's bad. It's bad baseball. It's frustrating to watch because it's frustrating to see a good team have their season, go down. I hate to say because of that. A lot of, it's a long game, it's a long season, long series, but hell, man, they would have won.
It's a critical juncture. And it's the thing is, to hijack the point, we've seen it now in that game 3 in elimination game. We're going to talk about Chicago-Milwaukee as a series. We got some other stuff to get through, and we'll run through it quickly in the American Association first. But Chicago-Milwaukee was plagued with this, too, in Game 3. Just a lot of poor fundies all the way around in that game. And it's been an ongoing issue. We mentioned earlier the Evansville situation in Game 1 of the semifinal. Right. And we were talking about this off air, where it's like, the clock struck playoffs, and now everybody's kind of forgotten how to play baseball again. And it's not like, is it nerves? Is it I want to be a hero? Is it just like the mistakes are more magnified now because the games are less and they mean more? Like, is it a combination of all of them? Is it a hidden fourth characteristic? Like, why is it this bad? Is really the question. And it's like little league mistakes too. It's not calling for a ball. It's not trying to catch it with 2 hands. It's trying to stretch something that should just not be stretched. It's minor stuff here, and I just don't get it.
Yeah, and I'm doing the breakdown of the numbers on my end, but it basically amounts to so essentially the win probability in this situation with if you're on second there, if you stop at second with nobody out, your win probability is at 42.5%. If you get to third, it bumps up to 47%. But if you get thrown out, it falls all the way to 10%. So like that's like the thing that you need to be talking about. So like you look at it, you're like, well, a sack fly brings them in. Well, the odds of a sack fly happening or something that happens that would only score you from third and nothing happening that would score you from second is pretty minimal. The odds of being thrown out are pretty good, apparently, because it happened twice. Then if you look at the follow-up situation, the odds if he stayed on second, Cam Thompson did, the odds of winning that game, that inning, are like, well, at least the odds of scoring a run that inning. Well, it's like, yeah, it's pretty. It's like 26%. The odds to win the game are 72. You could bump it to 83 by getting the third, or drop it to 55 by getting thrown out. So they cost themselves about 50% of win probability there, just by getting thrown out twice at third base and 3 places.
So trying to stretch something to get to third essentially was the equivalent of bet 100 to win 5. Where like, it's a slight bump, but it's just not a good bet. There's just not enough to gain here.
Yeah, exactly right.
So not great, boys. Not great at all. So we want to keep this moving because we still have to get through the American Association, our props and predictions, as well as just a quick update as to what's happening in the Atlantic League here. So with that said,
boy, am I up against it time-wise now.
Yeah. That said, quickly looking at the Billings-Ogden series is a best of 3 series, as is round 1. Starts the 16th. Game 2 is the 18th. If necessary, Game 3 will be on the 19th. Last 2 in Billings, first one in Ogden. Quickly, in about, say, 20 seconds, what are we thinking about that series?
Oh, man. I was about to do the probability chart on that.
No
right
numbers.
The
quick.
I did get a chance to.
It's on the list of things to avoid.
Yeah, well, I'll say, I'm trying to think on it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? I'll try to I'll figure it out in like the 30 seconds that you talk.
The numbers are a crutch. We'll break them of that. The NASCAR man needs numbers. But
dude, I push it out of my brain. I was like, cool, that's done. Now I can just think about like the Quebec series and the start of the American Association. I'm like, oh shoot, that's right. I still need to talk about those series in the meantime.
Yeah. Looking at it here again, having not been able to watch much of them, being behind the Flow Sports wall, just judging off of what I've seen here. If we're judging overall bodies of work, I probably think Ogden's highs have been higher than Billings' highs. That said, I like Billings a lot more. They had to do more to get in. They understand that they're essentially on borrowed time here. I like the momentum they've had. I think their first round matchup was a bit harder. So maybe that, kind of erosion, that fatigue that they have is a little bit larger. But overall, it's a 3-game series. Really trying to draw anything out of a 3-game series is hard because it's baseball. Anyone can have a good, 4 days. So I'm going to say Billings. I'm thinking momentum matters here. I don't know how much numbers are going to play into something that's such a small sample size. But overall, I think Billings in 3. I think Ogden's able to take one of those first 2. I think Billings understands the significance of it. They take the other one, and then they take a very big game 3 that's going to be at home for them.
Yeah, what throws me with Billings is part of the reason I like them so much going into the playoffs. I actually did like them more than you might think, was because they did give up 25 runs in 3 games, but they survived. So I'm like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like I got to scroll back and like remember who got hit and who didn't. But like, it is tough to sometimes make something of, certain guys where you're like, damn, his numbers look good. Every time I see him looks good. But then you're like, well, how many times did, like, sorry, catching a stray here. Like, how many times did he pitch against Idaho Falls? So that's the one that kind of messes with me sometimes when it comes to the Pioneer League. But, God, I still like that Billings pitching staff. I like Billings, but not as much as I might have liked Billings. If you told me before that series that they survived Missoula, I would have been like, hell yeah, I got Billings. Like, and they're playing Ogden, I would be like, yeah, I feel really good about that. And now I'm like, yeah, it wasn't pretty, man. Like, the bullpen got hit, the starters got hit, like everybody got tagged at some point. And the offense even showed weakness in the middle game. I don't know. It makes me nervous.
Don't think about it. Just ride with my Mustangs.
I'm with you. I'm going Mustangs.
Just ride with the Mustangs. That's all.
Mainly fight back against Ogden's weird social media.
Okay, so let's talk the American Association so we could wrap it up. Well, go ahead. We'll knock out both of the, we have 4. Oh, God, yeah, I forgot this is the launch playoffs, too. I structured this poorly. Oh, well. Chicago defeated Cleburne in 3. They lost game 1, then they won the next 2. They just kind of demolished Cleburne in game 3. The Cleburne effect of having to go to Texas and play in 100-degree heat definitely was an effect in game 1. They got back to the friendly confines of Rosemont, Illinois, and that definitely changed their immediate thoughts on that series.
Yeah, that's kind of what we thought would happen, honestly. Yeah.
That's pretty much all there is.
I got nothing to add.
Yeah,
we have more time to talk about this.
Yeah. The problem too is like this has been like a week long. Like this series has been over for about a week now, so it's hard to really.
I know. Yeah, I got nothing to add.
That's why at least these first 4 are going to go quickly. Milwaukee defeated King County in 3. Pretty much the same boat as the Chicago series, only they were at home for game 1, got demolished 11-2, took the L, went on the road to Kane County, won 9-7, then won 4-0. They got better with each game. They looked good in game 3. Game 2 was a hairy affair. I believe that was a walk-off, if I'm not mistaken. So got better, certainly as it went along. Any other thoughts on that series?
Not really, if I'm honest. Yeah, not really. It was so long ago, and like the teams that we're talking about are still playing, so we're like, I got other things to say on them.
Well, one of the 4 is.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, let's talk about another one of those teams that are playing. Kansas City defeated Sioux Falls in 2 games, one of the 2 sweeps in this round, 9-1 and then 4-0. So I guess you could say it got worse in some areas, but this series I think we could pretty much define as we expected this. Good for Sioux Falls for breaking their slump. proud of them for that. I also saw Myers got named manager of the year. I may have
Yes, he did. Well deserved.
See, I would have went Steve Montgomery. I don't think it's not deserved, but I just feel like Montgomery did more for it.
Fair. But, especially all things considered, different topic.
But yeah, any other thoughts on the Sioux Falls series? I think it pretty much went as we thought.
I was really rooting for them to win one because I felt like Kansas City is most interesting when they get stretched to a third game. Like I felt like Kansas City, I definitely felt that they would be in the championship. I felt that they would probably also have to play 3 games to make it there over Sioux City. But I felt like the whole thing would have been a lot more interesting if they already had to play 3 against Sioux Falls instead of getting through and lining up their pitching again. So I was really rooting for it. 1, because you want to see Sioux Falls get one. But
especially
2,
at home.
Yeah, like shake things up a little bit and see what happens if King County gets stretched a little. But yeah, it wasn't the case. Not King County, Kansas City. But Kansas City, man, damn solid team. That'll be a theme of conversation for a little bit.
Oh yeah, and trust me, there's an interesting game 3 we'll be talking about in a moment.
Yes.
But anywho, that brings us to the final one. Sioux City defeated Fargo Moorhead in 2 as well. 8-6 final in game 1, 2-0 final in game 2. Game 1 was another one where we were like, okay, this is an adventure. Game 2, not nearly as eventful. I thought this was going to go 3. I thought Fargo could at least get 1. But Sioux City did prove to be the better team overall. It also feels like a case where Fargo has to look at themselves in that I don't think anyone really thought they were going to have a long playoff life, but it did still feel disappointing from that team, all things considered.
Yeah, when you see them lining up with Sioux City, which is a team that isn't, a powerhouse.
Yeah, they're not overly impressive.
Yeah, I think that we kind of felt there would be some sort of fight. And, they've been there before, so you think they might just make it out just on having experience and some, some guys that stand out. But yeah, man, it's just this whole year that team, we kept being like, they'd go on they'd have a bad week and then they'd have like a better week, not a great week, but a better one, like an over 500 week. Like, all right, here they go now. And then they would, drop 3 out of 6 again and then 2 out of 4. You're like, well,
yeah,
what the hell, man? And just kept going. All of a sudden, like season got late on. I don't know. It was so different. You wonder if maybe there were some transactions that didn't come through, or just some things that some guys who weren't who they thought they were. But yeah, very weird to see. Even a lot of the games felt flat, which is also kind of weird for some of those Chris Coast teams that we've seen over the past couple of years.
Yeah, there was also a lot of injuries there too. Alex Dubord wasn't the same Alex Dubord, and he was hurt for a bit. Silviano was injured for a while. There's issues there. And Silviano did his job in the 2 playoff games. I mean, he was the sole source of offense, it seemed like, for the team. So I'm not going to blame him. But yeah, for overall, a team that returned a lot of pieces from last year's championship team, obviously there's turnover, but there's always turnover. It just felt like a very milquetoast kind of season. And the way I kind of described this matchup going into it, it's almost like if you heard, Auburn's playing West Virginia in football, you're like, that should be a competitive matchup. That should be pretty good. Those scores are pretty even. One's clearly a little bit better than the other, but it should be good. And it wound up being more like, no, it was more like, I guess, Tulane playing Western Kentucky. Or it's
yeah, that's the fair way to go about that.
Yeah, they put in college football terms. So, yeah, I think that pretty much does it for that opening round. Let's get to the semifinal round. We'll keep it with Kansas City and we'll keep it with Sioux City. It went 3. Kansas City took it in 3. Kansas City dropped game 1, 8-1. Kind of shocking. I don't think we really seen Kansas City get pushed around like that. Yet they answered back with a 5-0 shutout. So they were like, hey, we're still Kansas City. And then game 3. Man, was this a fun game 3, wasn't it? We had 5 ejections?
Yeah, man.
And some questionable officiating behind home plate. And it was obviously a very emotional loss for Sioux City on a series of levels.
Yeah, this is off the back of another. What was it? The Quebec games. I was not impressed with the umpiring, especially in game 2. And I always forget her name, Tanya, I think, who was umpiring that game. I kind of kept my mouth shut because, I don't know, I don't watch enough of those games. She could be pretty good. It's just a weird camera angle or whatever. But it seemed everyone was mad. Which, again, if everyone's mad, maybe you're actually doing a good job. But
that kind of left me like, oh boy, like, are we about to have an Indy Ball playoff, marred by umpiring? And then that JJ January game, man.
It's brutal.
Look, I don't know the background. I'm not as well versed in the umpiring crew situation out there. They were comfortable enough to go with him in a playoff game. But yeah, I don't know what the deal was.
I should.
We haven't seen much. We haven't heard much about it since, but definitely the umpiring itself was not great. I think it was probably unwise and poor situational awareness to chirp as much as they did, especially after ejection started. But yeah, man,
that's the thing I want to point out.
Not what you want for the league.
Yeah, I'm not sure about you, but I know I tuned in after the Chicago-Milwaukee game, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But so I didn't see the first two ejections. However, the broadcast mentioned that the first two ejections, one was a Sioux City, one was a Kansas City, that happened as a result of arguing balls and strikes, which if you're arguing balls and strikes, you can expect to be ejected. You can't do that. That being said, the Zinn ejection was bad. I get it. Yeah. He was mad, and it was kind of funny because when he jumped up, his chain wrapped around his ear for 1 second there, and that was hilarious to watch him arguing with the chain around his ear. But that was a bad one. I believe it was a bases loaded situation, or at the very least runners in scoring position situation. Full count. Pitch comes in. Good job by Herman behind the plate to frame that thing, because he took, what was it, an inside ball and dragged that thing right over home plate, and he got rung up on it. Now, Zinn was not happy about it. He should have been equally as upset as he was about it. That was ball 4. That should have brought in a run, and that changes a game that wound up being a 3-run game, which at that point, they didn't quite have 9 there. That said, keep in mind, it was a 6-1 game for a very long time. You can't allow 8 unanswered runs and expect to win a ball game. That's first off. Secondly, like you mentioned, once you've already had guys ejected, the warning period is gone. It's going to be a hot gun from there on out. So you can't be chirping them. Like the Sheik's ejection. I get it. Not a great zone. And as a pitcher that got screwed by that zone, I get it. You're going to be annoyed. You're going to voice your opinion. Also, expect to get run. So you got ran. It's going to be a thing. Also, it's always great when they got to walk through the crowd to go to the locker room. I find that hilarious. Yeah. It's phenomenal. But yeah, it's still a bad look to have 4 or 5 ejections, 3 of which from the same umpire in an elimination game. It's a bad look to have some very questionable zones in an elimination game by the umpire that ejected 3 guys already. It's not great. And the thing is, too, I still feel confident Kansas City wins that game regardless. But the fact of the matter is, it does mar it a bit. It does kind of put a mark on that. Because now we don't know, and it is a 3-run game. That's a game that could flip. Especially with a bases loaded walk there. All of a sudden, now let's just call it 9-7. Another guy comes up. That's a base hit away from a tie game in a totally different situation. Now, the same thing that could be said about a lot of the Evansville ones, or a lot of, like the base running mistakes that we were talking about in the Billings-Missoula series. If the mistake doesn't occur or the outcome changes, a pitcher's approach is probably going to change too. They're probably not going to throw the same pitch that wound up getting hit in a later at-bat in that at-bat, because now the situation has changed. You're going to be more conservative. You have a lead-changing run right behind your head. So, it's hard to play the would you rather or what if game because there's so many variables in it. It's hard to say. It's like, it was a mistake. It was a problem, and it definitely it affected Sioux City in a negative manner. In what I think is fair to say could be the last game that the X's ever play. So yeah, if I was a Sioux City fan, or if I was with the team for a long time, I'd be pretty damn upset too.
Yeah, that's all fair to say. We kind of had a similar conversation a little bit ago about, it's how you respond to things, and you need to understand, like, yes, you might want to yell, but you need to understand that there's bigger things at stake. And again, you can point the finger at the ump all you want, but you blew that lead, and it takes a village. I guess I linger on one, Kansas City is quite good at baseball. It's very hard to beat them. I mean, yeah, man, they're just a good ball club. I'm looking at the box score. It's like, yeah, it's like, I'm looking at the lineup. It's a complete lineup. Yeah, and it's going to be a problem to deal with for Chicago. We'll talk on Chicago, I guess, briefly, because I'm in a timing situation currently. But
yeah,
I guess the thing that's worth mentioning is the big thing that we've seen now since this is nothing official, but the way people are talking that are around Sioux City. It's seeming very
it feels likely
that we will not be seeing the Sioux City Explorers again in the American Association, unfortunately, which sucks. I mean, we talked before about this. That's why I don't want to overly hash it. And
and we'll go over it more next week too.
Once there's official news, we're going to talk on it more. But it sucks. It sucks. I mean, it's I think of it this way, and it's easy to write off. Like, well, the market's not good. Well, they did this one, they did that one, whatever. But like, I was thinking of it this way: to some little kid, this is a tragedy, and that sucks.
Yeah.
And I hate that.
Yeah, and there's probably at least one or two baseball careers that don't start because they're not there. And that's an unfortunate reality, and it's also a bad luck to see teams, going away. And they are a legacy team. They are one of the founding members, and to lose that is certainly notable. And we'll go into more detail about it when we have more time to. Then at the end of the day, too, there's the on-paper boardroom decision as to whether or not it's a practical thing or not, and then there's the actual boots on the ground thing where it's whether it's how devastating it is and what the actual effect is. So that's unfortunate there. And yeah, it's just a tough way. If that's how it all ends, that's a really tough way for it to end. And for someone that's been a fan of that team since like 1993 when they came in, that's a tough pill to swallow. That's the last you have is that game. It's tough. And I'm sure Josh Schaub's phone is going to be blowing up on his way back from Tennessee about that game. And he's going to be hearing about it. But, in any case, we do have to touch on Chicago, Milwaukee, and then just get over a couple of things.
Sioux City did put out, the Explorers did put in a proposal to lease the ballpark. Northwoods League also did, and who knows? There's no real comment on how that's going to go, and it seems the relationship with the city is not great, so that's why we're not optimistic. But,
Then also when you have people that have been with the org for a dozen years, and they're tweeting out what feels like love letter type of tweets, like this is the end of this chapter, it tells me that they're clued into something that they
the type of people who would know.
They know, just they won't say. So
yes, I agree.
It's what it is. Let's get to Chicago defeating Milwaukee in 3. They dropped game 1 4-3. Then they won the next 2 3-2. Again, lazy writers. That's what happens when you have scab writers. Game 3, man, that's another one we were coming off of where it was like, hey, this isn't what I signed up for when I heard there was multiple elimination games tonight, because Milwaukee was in control for a very long time. Chicago had one hit, and Cody Bohannock should really be the only guy that deserves any real credit in the Chicago win. Pitching staff, too. They did a good job. Not going to lie there, but from an offensive perspective, Cody Bohannock's the reason that they're playing for a championship right now, because he did pretty much everything, kept them alive.
Yes,
Milwaukee didn't help with some amateurish fielding, certainly. Peyton Gray got stretched a little too long. Don't really love my closer throwing 2 innings, although, again, in a put-them-down type of game, I kind of need my closer to go ahead and give me everything you have, bud. You're the best arm I have in my bullpen. So I hate that for my guy Peyton Gray, but it is what it is. And it just felt very fitting after watching that game that it would end on a little bloop single over the third baseman's head into no man's land. It just felt so fitting.
Yeah, that's not like the chaos of that game, though, erase how good Chicago's pitching was this series.
Fair.
Joe Weiland, he was great. Nick Green was nasty the day before. They held it down, man. That pitching staff, what did they allow? They allowed 8 runs total, 4 in the last 2. That's hell of an effort, man. Really, I was impressed. I didn't think Chicago was going to bring that to the table against a team like Milwaukee. That was Yeah. I mean, I don't want to double down and say impressed again, but I was impressed again. Yeah. So yeah, it's part of it. I mean, I'm just looking at the amount of time the bullpen covered last game because I mean, they really did. There was a bullpen game last night, and you're deep in the game if you're Chicago. So when you're doing a bullpen game, you're not betting on going 11. You map that out for 9, and the fact that they were able to make that work as well as they did was pretty impressive. And by the way, that was 8.2 scoreless from the bullpen last night, which is crazy.
Damn.
Yeah, bro. Right?
That gives me a lot of hope for honestly. And I'm going to use this as my segue here, even though there's a lot I could say about Milwaukee. I'll leave it at that because I do like Milwaukee as an organization, and I'm a big fan of Anthony Barone and a lot of the guys in the Milwaukee team. So we'll go ahead and we'll segue off of that. And also for time's sake, into the Kansas City-Chicago championship here for the Miles Wolf Cup. And I am praying to the good Lord this is going to be a sweep one way or the other so that way we could talk about on the show, and I'm not going to have to go ahead and have to talk about a week-old series on my return from Boston. So Kansas City's playing Chicago. Game 1's on the 16th. Game 2 is on the 17th. Game 3 is on the 19th. Game 4 is on the 20th. Game 5 is on the 21st. So first 2 in Chicago, next 3 in Kansas City. That's if games 4 and 5 are necessary. I kind of like Chicago in the sense of they can really fight back and their pitching's really solid. I am afraid that they kind of burn through all they have to get to this point, and their offense scares me because it's pretty much like Luke Mangiari, Josh Altman, and Cody Bohannon. And on the flip side, Kansas City is like, we have 9 guys that can all hit. And their pitching's also pretty damn good. So like on paper, they should be the Monarchs. But there's something about Chicago that has this kind of Cinderella vibe to me.
Yeah, and you have 9 guys that can hit, but Chicago just showed they have 9 guys that can pitch. So that's like, this is going to be quite a matchup, and it's going to be interesting as they get deeper in and the depth gets tested too. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, I mean, that bullpen for the Dogs, it's 13 2/3 innings and allowed 1 run this series. So they show that they can do it from just about anybody that they go to there. The numbers, looking at the win probability, it does lean Kansas City, but when I say lean, I mean it. It's like 51.3% for them to win the series. So it is not by any means a certainty. It's one of the closer series we've seen in the playoffs when it comes to that. So, I want to say what makes me nervous is just, Kansas City has had moments where they could really pitch well. They had one game where they did not hit well. The Dogs pitch well in every game, but the Dogs also, we talk about them only giving up 8 runs. They also only scored 8 runs against Milwaukee. So that's where I start to get worried when it comes to them against Kansas City. So, yeah, I'm hesitant. Kansas City took 4 out of 7 in the season series. They scored a lot of runs against them, but that was back in June. So there's not much to go off of here, but man, it's hard to go against Kansas City. I'm rooting for the Dogs. I'll tell you that much. I want to see them win.
I'd agree with that.
I like it. Nothing against Kansas City, but I like that energy. I've seen seen the Dogs get done.
Yeah, I mean, they could really have some Miami Marlins vibes in here, where it's like when they make the postseason, they win. Only in this case, they've made the postseason before. This is the first time they've ever won a series, was beating Cleveland. Right. And then they beat Milwaukee. So like maybe it's like if they get one, they get them all. So I'm definitely rooting for that. They're more of and pardon the pun, an underdog story, which that's the title if they win, by the way, for the next episode. It's Underdogs. But in any case, and sometimes they write themselves. It's just, like you said, it's so hard because Kansas City has done it before. Kansas City's been such a dominant team since taking the Monarchs brand. And I'm also wearing my Negro League shirt right now, so I kind of feel like I gotta pick Kansas City. But like, I am rooting for Chicago. I think they have the better story. And I feel like there's just something about them where they could get it done. They've defied the odds so far. Why not one more, right? So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of agree. We're leaning like lightly toward Kansas City, but we're kind of rooting for Chicago.
Pretty much, yeah. It's just like, because you just look at Kansas City and you go, how could they not? But then you're like, but there's a chance. Because there's and I think it comes down to, I haven't been overly impressed with Kansas City this postseason, but I have been impressed by Chicago. Now, is that just due to expectations? Very well possible. But for whatever reason, that's where it lies. So why don't we move on?
That's where I'm at.
Yep. So why don't we move on to the Atlantic League now? Just get a quick view at the playoff picture there. Their season's ending in a few days, so let's get a look at that playoff hunt, and then we can do our last bit of wrap-up news and get that out of here. Gastonia has won the wild card. Lancaster clinched the North tonight, yes?
Yes, they did. So really, there is no playoff hunt now.
Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much all said and done, yeah, because if High Point wins it, it's Gastonia. So it's really just a matter of how it all winds up shaking. No, yeah. Really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
To think about. Yeah. So that's pretty much what it is. It's going to be High Point, Gastonia, and Lancaster's Long Island, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was quick and easy.
Yeah, exactly right. And we can talk about what we feel, I guess, on that one. I'm trying to remember when the playoffs start. I think it's going to start by the time we record, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it starts actually like the day after or the day before. I think it's either 19 or 20 it starts, if I'm not mistaken. I think season ends 17. They're off 18, and then 19 it starts, I'm pretty sure of.
Yeah.
I had it written down a couple weeks
ago.
I
really have to sit and think about how I feel about these playoffs, because we got some really good matchups in it. And I don't know what to think, especially now that the Ducks have really heated up over the past couple weeks. They've been getting after it. So,
yeah.
We were talking about how the Ducks fell off and the Barnstormers are a second-half team, but I mean, last couple of weeks, the Ducks have not necessarily been
that team.
Easy, a good 6 or 7 game win streak mixed in there at one point. So,
yeah,
they've actually now they say it, they did just get swept by Lancaster, so maybe I'll shut my mouth about that one. But forgot that happened while I was like watching playoffs on the screen. But
how much is that? Yeah, just hiding something though for a possible playoff matchup.
Yeah, you're right, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm probably going to lean Barnstormers. It's just they're a classic second-half team, man. I don't know.
You're really trying to get the Ducks' feathers ruffled this episode, aren't you?
They already aren't thrilled with me, whatever. They're always mad about something. It's fine.
Fair.
Shout out to the Ducks. Holding the league together, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess in that sense, and I was right, season ends 17, playoffs start 19. We record the next episode on 20. So, by the way, y'all are going to have some out-of-date information by a couple of days. You're going to have to live with that, though, because I'm going to be in Boston, so deal with it. Any event, though, my only thought here is I lean Long Island just because they kind of been there, done that. Although, I mean, in fairness, Lancaster is on a title defense. They're a bit hotter, but there's so many major leaguers on that Island lineup, man. I just kind of got to lean them. And when they're cooking, they're cooking. So I'll give them that, although they don't seem to be like as unstoppable as past years there. So we'll go from there, and I'll probably readjust next week this time. As far as High Point Gastonia goes, those are two pretty damn even teams. So I don't even really know where to begin with that. Like, I say this as I'm wearing the Gastonia hat. I'm leaning High Point just because, like, I feel like there's honestly, part of me is like, there's a chance that Gastonia doesn't have a bus to get there. But then the other part of me is like, yeah, but they're a really good team. If they're able to deal with this bullshit off the field, they're able to deal with the business on the field. And also, I kind of rooted for Gastonia to win because I want to see what they're going to do with this ring situation. But, which means they ain't going to get them, but it'd still be kind of cool either way. In all seriousness, though, I think High Point's a more well-rounded team. I think they're a guttier team. I think they can pull it out. I do think Gastonia can win in different ways, and they are a damn fine power team. So it's hard for me to really pick one over the other. They're just so even. I go High Point by ever so slight of a margin.
Yeah. Oh, man, Mike. Just in the time that we've briefly been talking about it here, I'm like, I fully convinced myself. I don't know. My gut was like, I think Gastonia Lancaster in the finals, and then the more I'm like, well, High Point probably is better than Gastonia at this point.
Ooh, a repeat of last year.
Yeah, I know.
It's got very Frontier League-y vibes. Repeat champion goes to the final against a team that, is pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to do that, I think, I don't know.
Like, I'm picking the South Division no matter what.
They're so tight, man. They're so close.
Yeah.
the parity in the Atlantic League is usually pretty good, at least at the top. I mean, they always have a couple trash teams. That's insane. But, like, yeah. Because, again, you're right. Like, I feel Lancaster over Long Island, like, with fair confidence in my gut. And then I'm like, well, that lineup.
Yeah.
I still think Lancaster's better. The more I think about it, I'm like, Lancaster and High Point will probably be it with, oh, my God, dude, it's so close. I mean, a High Point, but by no margin at all in my mind. But I don't know. I'll run some numbers, but it's ridiculous.
We'll let time
I think that Lancaster and High Point were the two teams I ran the other day, just on, like, I ran a spreadsheet, and like one of the things that came out of it was like runs per game, like what the run differential is per game. And I think the difference between those two was like 0.01. I was like, damn, like the two teams who were in the final last year, like they might be again.
Yeah, it's a good playoff matchup. That much is for certain.
Oh, yeah.
So with that kind of wraps up the baseball discussion. We got some predictions and some props to run through. We'll try to knock those out in under 5 minutes and then get out of here.
Yes, sir.
One other piece of news, though, that kind of loops into what we were saying earlier with the Atlantic League being sloppy on some stuff. Remember a while back when we said they just kind of stopped doing the silver anniversary team? And then Ryan was like, oh, yeah, they did.
Yep.
They started up again. Corey Thurman got added. They didn't tweet anything out, at least to my knowledge. So they just put it up on the website. So we'll get the Corey Thurman news for you next week, in addition to some more Sioux City talk and some more talk on other things. It's just important to note, though. So that's there. Because Twitter's search function sucks, I can't really keep updating the kind of thread I had going. So we're going to start a new one, even though I don't even remember who's on that team. So we'll go from there. Also, there was a press release with Thurman in there too. I saw that. So whatever. Any case, predictions. Billings wins the Pioneer. Chicago wins the American. I don't have a third one. So those are kind of bold, I suppose, because those are some even series, but I figure it's fitting for championship week. Any thoughts on either one of those? Or did we already talk about it?
Ooh, damn, this is like the first time I've actually had to like make a pick on the Pioneer League situation. I think
what I say earlier, ride with my Mustangs.
I know.
Ride with them. Encourage good social media usage. Good online citizenship.
Yeah.
Do not encourage creepy cover photos on captionless photo dumps.
Yeah. Oh my God. I guess I will go with Billings. Yeah, I gotta go Billings. They're a more complete team than Ogden, I think.
Right, Mustangs.
If you beat Missoula, like that gets you a lot of credit in my book. Like we've seen before, Rocky Mountain was on a hot streak, but they were not a complete team, and Ogden beat them because they're not a complete team.
Yeah.
When it came to, the bigger picture when it comes to Billings, like they battled and they got through Missoula. Like they give up a lot of runs though, and Ogden scores runs. Unless they don't, because they actually didn't score that much. Hell, we're on Billings. Ride
Billings. Ride Mustang.
Yeah.
There we go.
Sure.
It's a good thing, too. Otherwise, when the social media guy would have listened to this show, got to this point, you would have been getting called out, because they already called you out for not ranking them. So, granted, I stoked that fire. So.
Pausing for the thought of, I need just to get it out there to the world. Like, hey, just because one team beats another team in a series, a playoff series, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be ranked better than that team now, because that's not how baseball works. It's a long season because 3-game series don't tell you a damn thing.
So you tell me.
Don't get in my DMs to be like, oh, you said this team's going to win. I said, nah, I told you what the win probability was. Like, congrats. They beat the odds. Enjoy that. Don't turn around and be like, oh, but your prediction was wrong. It's not a prediction. It's probabilities. Just telling you.
Yeah. Okay. Can I also just say.
It drives me nuts every year.
Before I just do the 2 over under here, I just want to point out one thing too. I saw under a lot of the tweets I was sending out, we had a lot of salty Sioux City fans. Understand that, emotional. I'll give them a pass. But the Dog fans that were acting high and mighty for beating Milwaukee, particularly the one that commented, all they have is a pretend ring. That's still more than you got, bud. Like,
settle down.
It's like, first off, let's just ignore the 2020 season then. You do realize last year, Milwaukee went to the final, right? Like, they came one Leo Pena single up the middle away from having another title.
Yeah.
They've gone to the final in 2 of the last 3 years. Like, they're still doing...
And they were an extra innings game away from going a third time.
Yeah, like, let's be real.
Which maybe embrace how good Milwaukee is and, you know, be like, yeah, and we beat them instead of, like, trying to be like, oh, they're not anything. I'm like, you're making yourself look worse. What are we talking about here?
Exactly. It's like they still have more postseason wins than you got, bud. Settle down.
Facts.
Like, let's calm it down here. Like, when you win a title, if you win the title, fine, talk your shit. But until then, why don't you settle down? Because I'm not sure you realize what's exactly in front of you. You have Mount Doom standing in front of you.
We're talking about how this series is going to be close, but there is also, I would not be surprised if Kansas City goes out and just punks them 3 in a row.
Oh, yeah, like that's a very real possibility. And I'll move on after this point. Chicago just had to extend their bullpen in an extra inning elimination game after having to really bank on them. Because what'd you say? That they were 8 2/3 scoreless?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of bullpen usage. That's a bullpen series. You know what Kansas City's really good on? Jumping on a weak pitcher that's fatigued. They're really good at just taking like what could be a 1 or 2 run inning and just gashing you for 5 or 7 and just saying, yep, this one's done. So like, let's keep that in perspective here. Good pitching can probably beat good batting, but when good pitching gets tired, good batting's going to kill them. And call me crazy, but I think you're a little bit more fatigued throwing a pitch, and it takes longer to get back from that than you do from swinging a bat. So, like, you know, I'm just saying, it's still not exactly an easy fight here, boys. Let's not talk until you get the job done. That's all. That's my soapbox. That's all. Any case, 2 over-unders. First one, York finishes 5.75 games out of first in the North.
Ooh, I'll pull up. I gotta pull this.
I believe they were 3.5 back at last I looked. Probably went to 4 now.
Okay. What was that number again?
5.75.
Cool.
Yeah, it needs to be over 5.5.
They have enough games for that.
Yeah?
Sure.
No, I don't know. I just picked the number. I figured it didn't have to work out.
I think they're 3.5 back.
Okay.
With 2 to play.
So in theory.
Either way, I'm taking the under because Lancaster doesn't have anything to play for.
Fair enough. I'm trying to think if the math does work out. I don't think it does. I think 5.5 is the most. I should have went with the 4.5 number that I was originally going to pick. Yeah.
You could have said 3.5. I was taking the under on.
All right, then.
I'm a believer in Lancaster is pushing hard, so I think they're going to rest some guys.
All right, then. The other one is there will be 48.5 earned runs in the Miles Wolf Cup final.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Earned runs. Not just runs, earned runs.
Mm-hmm. Jesus. That's a math equation. What are we doing out here?
I was really figuring this episode was going to wrap up an hour ago, and this would be our kind
of... No, I know. I'm screwed, dude. I still, for those who don't know, I'm up in 4.5 hours, so I can drive 8 hours to Tennessee.
Just throw clothes in his backpack, dude. That's your winning play. This is going to be me next Wednesday, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Finishing an episode at like 11:30, 12:30, editing the thing and packing my bag, all so I can get up and drive up to Boston.
I think we're going under.
Going the under? Okay.
Yep, I'm going under.
Going under on both?
We land probably around. I'll specify, but I think we land around 41.
Okay.
Put down the record.
I'll go under and then over. We'll do that one. Under on the first, over on the second.
Okay.
That's all we really got. Throw your plugs out there, then I'll throw mine out there, and then we'll be done.
Indy Ball Nation, I'll be trying to keep good coverage this weekend while I'm out of town, but I will do what I can. And then, I'm going to go watch cars drive in circles after driving in a car all day. So I don't know what that says about me, but here we are.
Says a lot, but that's what it is. I'll be picking up the slack for him as he watches the cars go around and around, zooming in a circle. And then he'll pick up my slack when I'm in Boston at the end of the week watching Macklemore. So
Yes, sir.
That's how that's going to work out. Indy Ball Report and pretty much everything except for Twitter or X or whatever the hell we're calling it nowadays. That's Indy Ball Pod. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is. Definitely check the show notes from this episode and last one, to be quite honest, because there's a lot of good links. Would highly encourage that. Those are on indyballreport.com, as is every episode. And I'd also just like to casually throw out here, even though it's been a year since I've done this, but I figure I should throw it out there again now, because I formally deleted the old feed, the old account that was on Podomatic, because those guys are assholes and the way they handle the customer service sucks. So I finally got rid of them, and that's all well set and good on that front there. So do not follow that feed because it doesn't exist anymore. This is the only one that exists now. So if you happen by some random chance know someone that was on the old feed and was wondering, why aren't there any episodes for over a year? First off, tell them to use their head. And secondly, tell them to jump over to this feed where they'll have literally 53 episodes to catch up on. And I'd recommend them starting back and working their way forward. It's going to be one hell of a ride when randomly Will's just not here one day. I really wish I would have just started calling you Will from the get-go and just see who catches on. Because, like,
oh, yeah, right.
How great would that have been?
ALPB_news.
Yeah, until next time, don't forget to play ball.